You're ready to proceed, Mr. President. All right, we're back on the record. Next item on my agenda is, I gather, in the matter of Karen Bills. Oh, wrong. And which one is it? Drug crafters? Drug crafters. We're skipping ahead in the agenda to drug crafters. The docket number is 2024-066. And I gather we have in front of the board a proposed consent agreement. Ms. Vales, would you be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please?
Ashley Vales, General Counsel of the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
And Mr. Smith, would you be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, Ryan Smith on behalf of Drug Crafters and Dr. Aaron Thompson.
All right. Thank you both very much. I'm just going to turn it over to you, Ms. Vales. You can explain to the board what they have in front of them.
Okay. So in your packet, I do have copies of the documents. I'm going to let Dr. Kirtley sort of address how we got here. If you'll remember, Drug Crafters was set for a hearing last February. And at that time, we sort of opened negotiations and entered a memorandum of understanding for their operations, and they have abided by that. And in light of all that, we are going to be asking the board to accept a non-disciplinary consent agreement, but I'm going to let Dr. Kirtley sort of elaborate on that.
Do I need to swear them in, Ms. Vales?
You can.
You didn't see the look she just gave me.
If you could, do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir.
Just real quick for the board members, as a review, and I think that Mr. Smith would agree with this. You know, when we were early on headed for an administrative hearing in this matter, you know, they actually came to our offices and had a chance for us to sit down and address the specific issues that board staff had identified with this corporation, and also to set an MOU for them to be able to continue to ship after correcting some of the actions that I don't believe they were fully aware of for Arkansas. We have some unique issues in compounding that are unique in that we don't allow pickup stations, or we don't allow excipients to be added to certain compounds except by certain prescribers. And through reviewing that and watching corrective action over the last few months and being able to verify or validate that, we then had discussion on potentially just introducing a mutually agreed upon potential consent order in lieu of a hearing having to go through every one of these issues that has since been educated on and corrected. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. That's about as brief as I can be in any hearing for you.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Smith?
No, there's really nothing else to add to that.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for the director?
I just had one. Did we previously do a non-consent agreement with them at a previous informal, or am I looking at this paperwork wrong?
No, I think you've got the one that would be proposed today.
Oh,
like
gotcha.
Okay. Like it would have been potentially through an informal.
Okay, so number 1 and 2 there, that's the proposal.
Yes,
essentially.
that's the proposal. The representative from Drug Crafters has signed it, as well as Dr. Thompson, who is their pick, has signed it. Dr. Kirtley will sign it if you all agree to it. And then, but that is the documents you have in your packet there.
And one thing I would point out is Drug Crafters has been appropriately licensed throughout this process. We have issues with other corporations that never had a permit or were not correctly licensed or have used other means to try to do an end run around our rules. That is not what we felt like we were dealing with this. So we entered in the discussions for corrective action and followed up on it.
Do they have or haven't come in before?
No.
Y'all just worked it? Okay.
They came in to have a hearing that didn't happen in February.
Okay.
But we took that time to step aside and sort of discuss, and we reached at that time the memorandum of understanding that you have in the packet as well. So they have not been to any hearing on this issue. We would like to propose this non-disciplinary consent agreement in lieu of a hearing.
And, I mean, the fine, I know it's not a fine, it's called investigative costs. So, I'm sure that had a lot to do with them not really knowing what they were doing and,
In the amount of time that I think both sides have put into
I
it.
know you put a lot of time, yeah.
So the board just need a motion to approve the consent decree?
That's what staff is asking for.
All right, Mr. President, board members?
Probably not any additional discussion on this. Does anyone want? Discussion? Favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The mo-
I don't think I had to memorialize or do anything beyond that since it's a consent decree. Yep.
Be the fastest paperwork you ever got.
Mr. Smith, you done for the day?
I'm done for the day. Thank y'all so much for your time today.
Good to see you again. No, we'll go ahead and go off the record. No reason for you to suffocate yourself for no reason. Thank you.
Jose Magana.
Ashley, are we skipping the Karen Bills one? What's it? This one? Are we skipping that one? Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, this one. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
12:30 is not gonna be here.
So who are we on?
Well,
Jose?
30 minutes, we're still 30 minutes, but.
But some of
that's like
these are
doing-
real easy. Are we at Jose?
I promised Debbie. We get out. We would speed up.
Ready? Mr. President, board members, you ready to proceed? All right. We're back on the record. This is styled before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy in the matter of Jose Alexis Magana, pharmacy intern applicant. Case number is 2025-002. Would council be so kind as to identify themselves for the record, please? Ms. Vales,
Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
Mr. O'Quinn.
Darren O'Quinn, of Little Rock, attorney for Alexis Magana.
All right, let me take judicial notice of both the statutes as well as the rules. Specifically Arkansas Code annotated 17-92-101 at sequence, as well as the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act. I have a packet here in front of me, exhibits 1 through 16. Any objection to the admission of 1 through 16, Mr. O'Quinn?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Without objection, 1 through 16 is admitted. Any exhibits that you brought here?
Yes, sir. I have I've marked as responding exhibit 1 of 5 character type letters, with one of them being from a licensed social worker that's kind of had seen Mr. Magana. And then one from a PhD, Savannah McCain, who's a psychologist who did a psychological evaluation.
All right, so 2 exhibits. Any objection to the admission of respondents exhibits 1 and 2, Ms. Vales?
No, I just want to, for the board's purposes, there's 2 folders on Mr. Magana. There's one entitled Board Exhibits. Those are my exhibits, and there's one that say O'Quinn Exhibits, and those are Mr. O'Quinn's exhibits.
All right, thank you very much. Without objection, respondents 1 and 2 are admitted. Want to do opening statements?
I'll waive opening.
All right, Mr. O'Quinn, since you waived, I'm going to ask you to do the same.
Okay, thank
As
you.
always, unless there's something exigent that you want to bring up, as always, I'll give you an opportunity to close. Ms. Vales, how many witnesses?
1.
And Mr. O'Quinn, just 1 witness for you too, sir?
1.
All right. Ms. Vales, go ahead and call your first witness, please.
Yes, call Dr. Brenda McCready.
Dr. McCready, you swore or affirm the testimony about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Please proceed.
Thank you. Dr. McCready, what is your job title here at the Board of Pharmacy?
I'm the assistant director.
And as part of your duties as assistant director, do you review applications, including intern applicants?
I do.
And did you review the application of Jose Alexis Magana?
I did.
And this matter was set for an informal hearing in December of 2024. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is it your recollection that the board, the informal committee members asked for this to be set for a formal hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what are the allegations or the concerns that staff had with regard to Mr. Magana's license for intern?
During the application process, we were provided with information that the applicant had disqualifying criminal history. He had on 5/16 of 2023, he had an aggravated assault. And 11/13 of 2023, he had a failure to appear. And additionally, with the aggravated assault, he also had a domestic battery. He had the informal on 12/28 of 2023. We received information that he was convicted of those negotiated plea on those charges. He had 72 months probation, cost and restitution, order to anger management. He had to do 80 hours of community service, and he was actually sentenced under the first offender laws of Arkansas.
And with regard to people with criminal background issues, what is the board's access to those records? What is the rules of law on that?
The board actually has access to all records, even if they are sealed.
All right. And so can I refer you to Exhibit 7?
Yes.
Tell the board what Exhibit 7 is, if you would.
Exhibit 7 is the arrest information for Jose Alexis Magana. It's the arrest record for the aggravated assault on the family or household member, a Class D felony, and also domestic battery in the 3rd degree, a Class A misdemeanor.
And that document is, and it looks like it was amended after that, signed by the prosecuting attorney in the 4th Judicial District, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's a charging document with those charges.
Yes.
And tell the board what Exhibit 8 is.
Exhibit 8 is the sentencing orders for the domestic battery and aggravated assault.
Okay, and how many months probation did he receive?
72 months probation.
How much, I'm sorry?
72 months probation.
Okay, and at the top of that page is this was filed. Tell me the filing date of this sentencing order.
July 24, 2024 is the date
Okay,
that he appeared.
okay. And so in 2024, he received 72 months probation.
That is correct.
So by your math and mine, he's still on probation.
That is correct.
Okay. And tell the board members, if I can refer you and them to Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9 is, this is the Fayetteville Police Department summary of the, arrest from 5/17 of 2023.
And
Battery and, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and in the second page of that exhibit is a narrative.
That is correct.
And in that narrative, does it describe the allegations and ultimately what Mr. Magana was convicted of?
It does.
And can you explain to just a synopsis of what is alleged in that narrative?
There was the aggravated assault on a family or household member and the domestic battery. He and his girlfriend got into a altercation or an argument. There was some fighting. It was stated that during the attack, he slapped the victim, pushed her to the ground, shoved her head into a wall, slapped her chest 3 times forcefully. She said the victim described the way that he shoved her was similar to watching a wrestling match on television. He'd be calm for a little bit. He attacked her again, and he is accused of placing her in a chokehold. He then began throwing DVDs and other objects at her, which is I believe that's the domestic battery assault charge.
And does this narrative indicate that some injuries were photographed by the police officers?
It does.
Okay. And does it also indicate that the victim in this case sought medical treatment?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then, can you describe for the board, I guess, time-wise and what Mr. Magana has done with regard to his filling out his intern application and his contact with the board? Generally referring you to Exhibit 13.
I can. Exhibit 13 is actually the document. I'm sorry, that was 12. 13 is a letter that went to Mr. Magana. He had not completed his pharmacy intern application in its entirety. We did mail his check back to him.
And were you present on that day when Mr. Magana came up here to fill out that application?
I'm sorry, I do not recall.
Okay. But this letter from Ms. Sweet indicates that he did not fill out the complete application. Is that your reading of that document?
That is correct.
And is that why we returned the check?
That is correct.
And that was in January of 2024,
That was in
correct?
January 2024.
When was his initial intern licensure?
His initial license was in 2019. It was issued on 9/25 of 2019.
Okay. And are you aware, you may not be, but are you aware of Mr. Magana's status as far as his education with UAMS?
He is not currently enrolled at UAMS.
And since Mr. Magana was here last, have we learned there's been another criminal offense?
Yes, Mr. Magana was here on 12/11 of 2024. He received a DWI on 2/13 of 2025.
And were we provided any documentation or updates about that court proceeding from Mr. Magana?
We were not.
What is staff's recommendation with regard to the intern application of Mr. Magana?
That it be denied.
Anything else that you would like to present regarding your investigation into this application that we've not already talked about?
No, ma'am.
Okay, pass the witness.
Mr. Quinn?
Just a few, thank you, Dr. McCready. When Mr. Magana filled out did he ever complete the internship application after he left that one day?
I believe that he did. I don't have a copy of the completed one. Let me go back in here. Real quick.
There you go, 4.
Yeah. I gotta look. He did on Exhibit 4. It was completed on, this is dated 8/1 of 24.
Okay, and did he truthfully complete the application listing the charges that were known at the time?
He did say that he had been arrested, yes.
And then subsequently, he's gotten a DWI, correct, just, I guess, a few months ago?
Correct.
And that is also, that's referred to in Dr. Savannah McCain's psychological forensic evaluation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else? Board members, any questions?
Did I hear correctly that he was originally started school in 19 or?
The intern application was dated 9/25 of 2019.
So that would have meant he was in his first year, at least in his first year of pharmacy school. And I'm just trying to think of from a practical standpoint. I mean, once you enter a pharmacy program, it has to be done within, is it 7 years?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact year.
There is a time limit, time frame.
There's a time frame, but I can't
I
tell you
thought it
exactly
was,
what
I
it
thought it
is.
was 6, it may be 7, somewhere in that
6
ballpark.
or- Yeah, that's what I'm, because if it's 6, we're at 6, we're almost to 6 now. So he was in pharmacy school. And then we got a letter that says he is not in pharmacy school. Do we know how far he completed, or do we need to ask him that?
You would need to ask him that.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Magana came for an informal, right, in December? What was our, could not find it in here. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's.
Refer to a full board.
Okay.
Yeah, you made
Refer
no
to a full
decision
board.
except for that.
But after, so he came in, I remember we talked about the past criminal history and the events that occurred. We moved it to a full board. And then approximately 2 months later, he got a DUI,
DWI.
DWI. Okay. Thanks. Just wanted to be clear.
So he isn't in school now, but why is he's trying to get his intern license so he can go back to school in August or something?
That is my understanding, yes.
Well, but in order to be an intern, you have to be enrolled in the College of Pharmacy, right?
But I believe history has shown that the school defers to us to hold the hearing and see if he's going to be able to get a license before they let him come back in.
So he's still on probation from the original.
Yes, he was on 72 months probation. I don't know what his probation status is since he's gotten a DWI. I don't know if he's reported that to his, you would have to ask him that.
So the 72-month probation period will be up when? Do we know?
It
I tried,
was,
I'm sorry, there's too
um,
many pages to try
no,
and find.
he was, he did a negotiated plea of guilty on 7/26 of 2024. So 6 years.
Any other board members?
Can we find out the year thing? Is that a thing that we can?
Yep.
No, not that. How many years he has to complete pharmacy school?
We
Is that,
can ask him.
oh, right.
All right, follow up from council based on the line of questioning from the board, Ms. Vales,
None.
Mr. Quinn.
No, none.
All right, Ms. Vales, I think I heard you rested.
I rest.
Mr. Quinn.
Yes, I'd call Alexis Magana.
Sir, would you be so kind as to raise your right hand? You don't have to stand up. Just raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear, I was gonna say your other right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. O'Quinn.
Would you state your full name and mailing address for the record, please?
Jose Alexis Magana, mailing address 94 Laredo Drive.
And Mr. Magana, your mother's here today with you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she's in the audience, I believe?
No,
She's
she's,
gone to the restroom, okay.
she needed a break.
Okay. She's a pharmacy technician?
Yes, sir.
And you heard some of the board's questions, so let's go through your background. You finished through the third year of College of Pharmacy at UMS, correct? Okay.
Yes,
And then this issue came up and you were not approved for an intern license so that you could finish your senior year. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And UMS has said, come deal with this at the board, and depending on how that comes out, then you're still eligible to be returned to the College of Pharmacy to finish your senior year.
Yes,
And and your senior year mostly consists of rotations, as I understand it?
Yes.
And then that requires you to have an intern license to do the rotations to complete your senior year. But right now, that option is still viable for you. You can get back in school, complete the rotations, and then you would graduate, correct?
Yes.
Then you'd have to take the NAPLEX and the law exam and those types of things. You've already passed the law exam, though,
Yes.
right? Okay. But then you would take the NAPLEX and it would be subject to revisiting with the board, I guess, at that time on whether you get a full license. Your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. You got to speak up a little bit. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
So, so you have been licensed as a technician, I think Dr. McCready said, since 2019, it appears?
Yes.
Okay. And then that expired,
A technician or an intern?
an intern.
An intern, sorry.
But prior to that, were you a technician?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So how long were you a pharmacy technician?
Since I turned 18 at the Beer Drug Pharmacy in Star City, Arkansas.
Is that where your mother also works?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what piqued your interest in being, possibly being a pharmacist?
The pharmacist that works there, Eddie Beard, he also owns the pharmacy. He kind of raised me, became a mentor. And, you know, I kind of found out later in life that's what I wanted to do. I enjoyed it.
So you applied to the College of Pharmacy, UAMS, and you were accepted.
Yes.
You completed 3 years before
The
this
incident.
incident happened.
Yes.
And you're not able to even get back in school or complete your school without an intern license.
That's correct.
So you're here today, you're asking for a board waiver to get an intern license so that you can complete your final year at UAMS.
Yes.
And UAMS is aware of this proceeding.
Yes, they're aware.
And we've set the hearing so that you still have time to get into school this year.
Yes, that's what we're hoping for. Yes.
So now let's go through the where are you currently employed? What have you been doing since the incident happened with UAMS and you've been out of school?
Positive Growth. It's a lawn care company. We do all kinds of stuff, landscaping, trimming, mowing, weed eating.
And other than this allegation, have you ever had any other, or other than these criminal charges, have you ever had any other criminal charges?
Not before the incident.
And the failure to appear, what was that related to?
That was, I hired a lawyer. I mean, he kind of called me out of the blue and he asked if I needed to hire a lawyer, and I said yes. And I was a little skeptical, because I didn't know him. But I needed him quickly because, I guess the hearing or the trial was, or I don't know the lingo, but I needed a lawyer by Monday, and it was over the weekend that he called me. So I hired him, and he wasn't a very good lawyer. He didn't follow up with me. And I thought maybe that's because he was working on the case. And I was in school at the moment, and I was, studying for exams, having a normal life, or, trying to. And then I found out that I had a warrant for my arrest for failure to appear. And at the time, I was really stressed. I mean, with school and everything in the background, I didn't follow up and I failed to appear.
Okay. So that was handled when the domestic incident and the assault incident were handled, correct?
They were handled by a different lawyer, David R. Cannon.
David, okay, you eventually got a new lawyer,
Yes.
David Cannon,
Yes.
for your criminal matter?
Yes.
Okay. So, but other than that, and then you had the recent DUI, and the board will ask you about that. Have you had any other issues with the Board of Pharmacy or the school?
No.
Okay. And there's some testimony about maybe you were up here completing an application to apply for your intern license, correct?
Yes.
And then did you receive a phone call and leave without filling that out?
I don't remember a phone call. It kind of happened so quick. My sister had like some kind of accident. She sounded stressed. She was on Broadway going to McDonald's because she dropped me off. And so I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I left.
Okay, so you left. Did you eventually complete the application that you didn't complete that day?
Yes.
And were you truthful on the application about the charges that you had at the time?
Yes, I've completed the full application, sent it in.
So let's go to the charges. There was an aggravated assault on a family or household member. There was a failure to appear, and then there was a domestic battery in the third degree. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you pled guilty to all three of those, correct?
Correct.
A negotiated plea?
Yes.
And the judge sentenced you under what's called First Offenders Act, which is according to your plea, your sentencing order is I had it right here. Arkansas Code annotated 16-93-301. Recall being sentenced as a first offender.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And I want you to read the law, that 16-93-301, just a portion of that, to see if this is your understanding of what the judge did. Will you read
The highlighted.
16-93-303, A, 1A, little I. So just read that paragraph if you would.
Whenever an accused enters a plea of guilty or nolo contendere
Okay, and you entered a plea of guilty, correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
prior to an adjudication of guilt, the judge of the circuit court or district court in the case of the defendant who previously has not been convicted of felony without making a finding of guilt or entering a judgment of guilt, and with the consent of the defendant may defer further proceedings and place the defendant on probation for a period of not less than 1 year.
Okay. And so the judge did that and you, he put you on probation for 72 months, correct?
Correct.
I think that was on the aggravated assault on a family or household member, 72 months. And then there was 12 months on the domestic battery, but they ran together, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move on and talk about what happened that day in question. It looked like you appeared in court on July the 26th, 2024. Is that to enter your negotiated plea?
Yes.
Okay. And did you, it looks like the offense occurred on May 16th, 2023.
That sounds right. Yes.
So tell the board members what happened, what happened during this altercation? Who was the person that you were having an altercation with and what led to it, and just describe what happened?
It's been 2 years, so it's also hard to recall those kind of memories, but the altercation began, it was just an argument
With who?
with my ex-girlfriend.
Okay. Y'all were living together, correct?
Yes. We had an apartment. We were both on the lease. It was an argument over financial issues. And one thing led to another, the yelling became louder. And then it just started getting a little bit physical and then more and more. And then I think I know I got a little out of hand. I got out of hand.
Did you also like throw a phone charger or something like that? Or was that the aggravated assault part?
That was actually just us breaking up, and my ex-girlfriend was just like, okay, well, this is mine. Well, this is mine. So, we started throwing things at each other, and that's why I was throwing CDs and stuff like over here, take it. And I should have never done that.
Did she call the police that night?
No, I thought the dispute was, or the argument was over.
Did she stay in the house of the apartment that night?
She did.
Did you stay as well?
Yes.
And then when did you know that it had been reported to the police and you were arrested?
The following night. It was like maybe around 10. I can't really remember. And I didn't know really what was going on. I just thought we finally broke up. She left. But there were officers at my door, and I was like, okay, this is something serious, and I was arrested and taken to jail.
And hired a lawyer, David Cannon, for that criminal issue, correct?
Correct.
And y'all were able to negotiate a plea of guilty with you being sentenced under this First Offender Act, correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that if you complete your probation 72 months and you're on good behavior as required by the sentencing order, that you'll not have a conviction and the file will be sealed and expunged?
Yeah.
So you have a motivation to be on good behavior, I take it.
I have a lot of motivation, yes.
So let's go to, you're asking the domestic battery, there's a law that says that it's a disqualifying offense unless the board grants you a waiver. Is that what you're asking for here today?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go through the 8 factors that the board can consider, among others, of whether you should get a waiver or not. And just to be clear, you're wanting the waiver just to get an intern license, just to get back in school and try to complete your senior year.
Yes, I just want the waiver to complete the 10 rotations.
And you were trying to get it before, if you wait 72 months, then you're not going to be eligible to, your 3 years will be wasted, correct?
I've lost a lot of what I've already learned, and it's just,
So let's go through the factors that the board can look at on the waiver, and they're listed. I'll just go down through each one of them. First, the age at which the crime was committed. You were around, what, 28 or 29 when you did this, right?
28.
Okay. So the circumstances surrounding the crime, was this a first offense for you?
It was first offense.
Okay. And was, it was I guess I'm not saying a lover's quarrel, but it was a domestic dispute, argument that got out of hand.
It really did get out of hand.
Do you deny that you were wrong?
I was very wrong.
What do you wish that you had done looking back?
I wish I walked away. I wish I.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because in retrospect, you're 2 years out of school. You spent a lot of money on lawyers, and you've lost the opportunity to start a good profession, at least 2 years earlier, probably. You've thought about this a lot, I take it.
I've had plenty of time to think and contemplate.
And you were lucky enough that the judge sentenced you under the First Offenders Act so that you don't hopefully end up with any kind of conviction or criminal record. And so the third factor is the length of time since the crime. It has been approximately 2 years since the incident happened?
It's been 2 years.
Okay. So another factor is your subsequent work history, your employment reference, and your character references. Have you supplied the board with some different references from employers and people who know you as a person?
I have.
Yeah, so let me go through them. You
Oh.
have, yeah. It's Respondents Exhibit 1. And the first one is from Roland, I guess Eddie Beard, who's unknown by a pharmacist that owns Beard Drugstore in Star City. Is that where you're from?
Yes.
Okay. And he's the one that was kind of a mentor towards you?
He practically raised me.
Okay. And he submitted a letter on your behalf talking about his experience with you.
He did.
Then the next one is from a Dominique Morton, a licensed clinical social worker. It looks like LCSW, at Living Hope. Who is that Mr. Morton or Mrs.?
Miss Dominique.
Miss
Morton.
Dominique. Who is she?
She was my therapist.
Why were you seeing a therapist?
It got a little too much for me to be on my own and not have anybody to talk to. So I sought out a therapist at Living Hope.
Okay, and so she wrote a letter for you as well to the board on her experience with you.
He did.
And then there's a letter from Craig Keltner, manager of the Habitat for Humanity Restore. Who is Mr. Keltner and how do you know him?
Mr. Keltner, he was the manager at Habitat for Humanity here in Little Rock. And I was doing my community service hours or my probation. And well, I mean, I worked under him, you know, every day I was going to make sure I got my community service hours done. And I had a great experience there.
And the judge sentenced you to 80 hours of community service to be done within 2 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's part of your experience with Mr. Keltner was doing that
Yes.
or completing that. And then Jeremy Carter, owner and CEO of A Shade Above. Who is Mr. Carter?
He was a former employer. I worked for him. I helped him he's an interior fashion designer. I would drive his van to different locations throughout Arkansas and deliver pieces of lamps, shades, couches, and help him set up the houses for we did a bunch of photo shoots. We were on what's it called? Arkansas Living on the cover, on the front cover. I mean, that was a pretty fun experience. I mean.
And just to be clear, when you were as a pharmacy technician at Beard Pharmacy, when you were in school doing rotations or whatever you were doing with your intern license, interacting with customers in these different jobs, have you ever become unhinged and considered yourself threatening to anyone?
I've always found myself when I work with whoever I work with that I'm very adaptable. So I end up naturally liking what I'm doing, no matter what I'm doing. So I've never had a bad experience with any coworkers or of an employer.
Like say a patient comes in mad because it's taken too long for their prescription. I mean, you've ever had arguments with customers or anything like that or a patient?
I've always learned to the best option possible is just to try to de-escalate the patient and talk to them and kind of help them understand that, we're only trying to do our best and making sure that they get everything they need while they're there. And it usually always turns out well, unless the customer just wants to be angry.
Well, let's go on through your last letters from Vanessa Mendoza, RN at Pinnacle Point Behavioral Health. Who is Miss Mendoza and how do you know her?
She's actually my god sister. We went to the same university. She got accepted in nursing school. I got accepted in pharmacy school. We've known each other our whole lives.
And then finally, Exhibit 2, Respondents Exhibit 2 is a letter from Savannah C. McCain, PhD, a forensic psychologist and PhD. Were there questions at the formal hearing as to maybe that people wanted more insight into your current status? And is that why you got this forensic evaluation?
I can repeat the question.
Was there questions at your informal hearing like that they would like to see more, I guess an update from your therapist, which you've gotten, but also kind of more insight into your personality and what happened and why this happened?
Yes, yes.
And she has done that and she goes through really everything. That's where the DUI is first mentioned, I think. It's in her report that we provided to the board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at the end, the board can read all the tests that she did. Would you read on page 2 under assessment of respondents' ability to be a responsible pharmacist? Can you read that?
After clinical interview and testing, this therapist believes this man would be a responsible pharmacist. His anxiety and depressive mood is partly due to his circumstances. He has been in therapy to learn to deal with adversity in a better way. It is recommended to continue with therapy to help him learn coping skills and better decision-making skills.
And she found out a diagnosis was generalized anxiety disorder, adjustment disorder with depressive mood.
Yes.
Okay, and then just finally, would you read her summary of significant findings?
Mr. Magana is a 29-year-old Hispanic graduate student at UAMS who has been dismissed from the program due to his citations for DUI and aggravated assault. He has been to court for the aggravated assault and completed all requirements given to him for the citation. His DUI is being settled in court. He was tested using the MMEI3 and MCM13. Both showed him to have anxiety and depressive moods. He has been under extreme stress due to his dismissal from school, as well as dealing with the citations. From the testing, it has been ascertained that he is able to continue in school as a responsible pharmacist, and recommendations are that he be reinstated in school.
So let's go, I think that kind of covers your character letters and your evaluation. I guess finally, what are you asking the board to do, and why do you think the board should give you a second chance?
I'm asking the board for a waiver so I can get my intern license, so I can finish my rotations and graduate and finally finish what I first sought out to do when I entered pharmacy school, to graduate. This is hard. I'm sorry.
Well, you realize you're at a turning point in your career. You're either going to be a pharmacist and get back in school and hopefully be a pharmacist, or you're never probably going to be a pharmacist. This is your time. Do you realize that?
Yes.
And so what do you want to tell the board? I want to be sure you have the opportunity to say what you need to say.
I wrote this down just to kind of help me navigate what I want to say. I want to have the opportunity to rebuild my life. I mean, I pray that my ex-girlfriend can move on with her life and be happy. I know I can never make amends with a victim, with my ex-girlfriend. All I know is that I can't give up on my hopes and dreams of being a healthcare professional and making my family proud. Being someone who helps the community really does bring purpose to me. It's what makes me feel valuable and worthy. These past 2 years of me paying the price for that one horrible night, it's like I really relive a nightmare every night. I'm living with shame, and it's been so long that I've felt this way. But if the board can grant me a waiver, I believe I can start a new life that's filled with what I know I am, a compassionate person, and that brings positive attitudes to people who need it the most.
And you'd be the first professional out of your family?
Yes, I was the first to actually go to college, an undergrad, and I don't know how I made it this far sometimes. Just alone, nobody to guide me sometimes.
Thank you. I passed the witness.
Thank you, Mr. O'Claim. Ms. Rose?
Thank you. So Mr. Regano, when you were here last, you and I had discussion about the aggravated assault and domestic battery with your girlfriend. Do you recall that
Yes.
at your last hearing? And I started going over the facts of what was in the police report, and ultimately you pled guilty to committing felony aggravated assault and domestic battery. So today, are you admitting that you slapped your girlfriend
Yes,
and that you pushed her against a wall
I did.
and you slammed her head against a wall?
Yes.
and you threw her to the ground.
Yes.
And then 30 minutes later, things calmed down. 30 minutes later, there was another altercation that ensued where you threw an object at her, which struck her body. You admit to that?
Yes.
Did you choke her to the point where it made it difficult for her to breathe?
Yes.
Okay. And the next day, your understanding is she went to the hospital seeking treatment for a potential broken wrist?
I found out when the officer told me.
So, and that's when she talked to the officers when she was at the hospital?
I think so.
Okay. And you admit that, and this happened May of 2023, correct? Were you in pharmacy school at that time? You were, and living in Fayetteville? Okay. Did you realize the ramifications with school at that point when you got arrested for this?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you realize that for you, the convictions that you have, domestic battery in the third degree requires an injury to the victim. Were you aware of that?
Can you repeat the question?
So were you aware that to be convicted of domestic battery in the third degree, you're admitting that the prosecutor could prove that the victim had an injury?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Sorry.
All right, and then, so you are now on felony probation, correct?
Yes.
You have a probation officer?
Yes, ma'am.
When do you meet with the probation officer?
On the 10th of this month.
On the 10th of this month. Have you been meeting with the probation officer every month?
Yes. Every 3 months.
Every 3 months. Does your probation officer know that you've been arrested again for a DWI?
Yes.
When's your court date for the DWI?
I had court this morning and my lawyer said that it might get dismissed, but we're waiting. It got pushed back to August.
Okay. And are you aware that to be eligible for the first offenders program, you have to remain lawful for those 6 years?
Yes.
And you realize that if you have a DWI conviction, that could cause your probation and your first offender status to be revoked?
Yes.
And you've been explained that by your attorney?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're convicted of a DWI, they're going to go back and look at your aggravated assault conviction.
Yes.
And you could potentially be sentenced to, probably not, but you're eligible to be sentenced to prison if they wanted to do that. Okay. And part of your conviction for the felony aggravated assault and the domestic battery, you were to pay restitution of $406.22.
Yes.
Do you know where that amount comes from? Why you owe that money?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Tell the board members why you owe that money.
It's for the injuries.
For her medical cost
Yes, ma'am.
to be treated for the injuries that you caused?
I believe so.
And so, were when did you tell the administration at UAMS that you had been arrested? Well, it happened in May of 23.
Well, they called me to know what was going on
Well, how would they know to call you?
because my ex-girlfriend called the assistant dean,
Okay,
and the dean told me that I need to get a lawyer because she told them that I was arrested.
and did you get dismissed from school at that point?
No.
When did you choose not to go back to pharmacy school?
No, I was still attending school. I was supposed to
Okay.
be third.
At what point did you no longer attend pharmacy school?
When I found out about the felonies, the arrest warrant. That's when I had to get a different lawyer to fix that, and the board found out and they called my dean at UAMS and he told me that the board has made a decision to take me out.
Take you out?
Take me out of the program.
Okay. Well, so you can't be in the program unless you have a valid intern license, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so is that the reason why they dismissed you from school?
Yes, ma'am.
And so after that, you're dismissed from school. You've sorted out the failure to appear warrant. Do you know how long that warrant was active?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Was it active when you came up here to the Board of Pharmacy to complete your application and then left because of your sister?
I didn't know too much about what was going on. I didn't know there was a warrant out for my arrest.
Okay. When did you learn there was a warrant out for your arrest?
I don't remember the day, but I remember I forgot who called me, but they said that I had a warrant out for my arrest, and that's when I got a new lawyer. And that's when we fixed that up.
And you hired David Cannon, and I know David Cannon. Would you agree he's a good attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
And he represented you well when you went to court? Okay. All right. So on your DWI, you went to court this morning. You did not have a trial then this morning.
No, ma'am.
So when is your trial date for the DWI?
It happened so fast. Like it was an in and out kind of thing because he knew I had to be here.
Mhm.
So he mentioned that that they're gonna place the trial. I think he said August. I'm not too sure.
August, okay.
I can fill you in with that information. You would like.
Okay. So I know we've set this hearing before previously. But who have you talked to since your conviction of aggravated assault at the UMS School of Pharmacy regarding potential to re-enter school?
The dean, Bill Pashkoff.
And what did the dean tell you?
He just told me that it's up to the board. But if the board grants me the waiver, then they'll take me back.
For sure.
I mean, that's all he said. He never said for sure.
Okay. And so I'm not going to ask you about the DWI since it's pending, but I am going to, my question is, you've talked earlier about, you knew that you need to be on your best behavior. Would you agree that if you got a DWI, if they find that you've committed this DWI, that wouldn't be your best behavior, would it?
No.
And that, if proven true, was committed while you're on 72 months probation and while your waiver application with the board is pending. Okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Quinn,
No follow-up.
board members, questions?
You left off with the DWI, so obviously you had trouble with alcohol there. The first incident, was it alcohol fueled? Did you all fight because you were intoxicated?
No, I wasn't intoxicated. I think I had like maybe 1 or 2 beers, but it was,
You were just plain being mean.
yes, sir.
Any other questions from the board?
Have you had any contact with the college of pharmacy?
No, ma'am, not yet.
No, it's been a 2-year gap.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the College of Pharmacy know about the DUI?
No, sir.
Anyone else from the board? Follow up from council, Mr. Quinn, Ms. Vales? All right,
I'm sorry, he does have something to add, so I'll follow up.
sure.
Do you have anything to add?
With Mr. Richmond, I did start Lexapro. And I do remember I was feeling a sudden onset of severe.
I'm going to interject. If you're talking about the circumstances around your DWI, this hearing is being live streamed on YouTube. You might not want to say anything. You might not want to incriminate yourself. I understand you want to explain it, and you can, but you need to know that if you do, it could be used against you in your DWI hearing.
Were you talking about the DWI, Lexapro, or what led to
No.
the assault?
When he asked me what I was, if I was drinking,
Go ahead.
Okay.
I did start it, and I did feel a sudden onset of just like instability. I remember I was doing stuff that I was like, it just made me more, I don't know how to explain it. I would just, I can't.
Who put you on Lexapro?
An APRN that I was seeing, I think, in Conway. I can't remember. I can go back and maybe look at my prescriptions and pull it out.
Just so I understand, the gist of what you're saying is that while the assault may not have been alcohol related, that you may have had some influence of Lexapro.
My ex-girlfriend did make a comment to me that she called my mother because I was acting different. I was in the shower just laying there because I don't know how to describe this feeling, but I remember she called my mother about it, and she was concerned.
Are you on Lexapro any longer?
No, sorry.
Any other questions?
I have a
Concerns?
follow-up. So, I misunderstood. You're talking about you were on Lexapro at the time of the aggravated assault. Is that right?
Yes.
Should you be drinking beer and taking Lexapro?
It wasn't at the same, it wasn't like same time. It was just like I would take it like in the morning, and the beer drinking was just like 2 or I think maybe 3 at night. That's it. But I mean, the feeling that I had when I was on that medication was like, it lasted about a week before I got off of it. I couldn't handle it.
That's all I have, Smollett.
Mr. Quinn,
No further.
board members? If not, how about closing statements? Ms. Vales?
Mr. Magana was here in February and the board was concerned so much that we punted this to the formal hearing today. And I think the facts have gotten worse. He's on felony probation for 6 years. Now he's got a DWI on top of that. He's been out of pharmacy school for 2 years. I mean, I think, just because you get into pharmacy school doesn't entitle you to finish. I mean, he's made his choices and committed criminal acts. And it's just a matter of the integrity of the profession. Do you want someone with this kind of background working in your pharmacy? Can their patients of Arkansas trust someone that has this criminal background? We have technicians that we've denied for less than these offenses. This is a deniable offense, and my concern is even when he knows he's supposed to be on his best behavior for his probation officer and for this pending waiver with the board, now he has another charge, which we learned of a couple of days ago through the exhibits that Mr. O'Quinn presented. He's not updated us with any information about the DWI as we don't normally require of the waiver. So you all are pharmacists, it's your profession. I think it needs to be guarded carefully, and the integrity of the profession needs to be guarded carefully. Because again, as I say repeatedly, our job here today is to protect the patients. And I'm not sure that Mr. Magana's behavior has exhibited that he is worthy of finishing his schooling and becoming a pharmacist in light of his violent criminal activity and potentially alcohol-related criminal activity.
Thank you, Ms. Vales. Mr. Quinn?
So Mr. McGanna's, his request is simple, is he's asking for an opportunity to get back into school, and he cannot get back into school without the ability to have an intern license to finish his fourth year because it's primarily rotations, which requires an intern license. The school has said that he'll be eligible to come back. He hadn't timed out yet, or his education hadn't gotten that stale, I guess is the way to put it, that they will take him back and he has the potential to finish if he has the intern license. In order to have that, he's got to have a waiver. And that's what his request is for you today. You still are going to get a second opportunity to look at him when he comes back and applies for a full license, if he's able to finish school. So this isn't the last, chance to look at him, and you can see what his track record is between that time. I mean, you're going to have the court's going to have eyes on him. The school's going to have eyes on him. The preceptors and people in the rotations are going to have eyes on him. And he's at a point in his life where he's either going to be able to be a professional or he's not. He's going to have to go continue on with his landscaping job or those types of odd jobs that he's been doing to fill his time. But he's wanting a second chance is what he's hoping to get. And then he still would have to prove himself again when he applies for a final license.
I have a rebuttal.
Sure.
So just a little issue I have with Mr. O'Quinn's statement. If the board decides to grant him an intern license and he graduates, takes an NAPLEX, we're not going to revisit and try this matter again at the point where he could become a pharmacist. So, I mean, the decision about his future, I guess, is to be made now. We're not going to be able to revisit it. We wouldn't, if the board decides to grant it, we wouldn't ask you to stop it at the point of the pharmacy license.
All right, thank you, counsel. At this point in time, I'll call the evidentiary record to a close. Again, I will counsel the board that you've got, let's see here. 9 allegations of fact that have been made in the order of notice of hearing and 1 charge. I need a motion on that. And then a determination in terms of what to do moving forward. With that, we'll go off the record and the board can deliberate. We're off the record.
All right, we've now heard this case in its entirety. Actually, we've heard it a couple of times of recent months. I think just my simplistic view of it is, one, globally, we have a consideration of do we want someone in the profession in the practice of pharmacy with the background that they have. And it may be another consideration is a little more technical, is he has a ongoing 6-year probation that has now been complicated by DUI that has not yet been completely adjudicated. And so we don't know the status of that. So with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
I think we ought to give him a chance at becoming a pharmacist. And gone through school, he's been able to get through the didactic part of pharmacy school. And hopefully, he has been rehabbed enough so that he could go ahead and complete his training.
So whenever we see like a pharmacist who has like already been licensed out in practice and comes in a situation similar to this, I feel like there is at minimum pretty significant requirements for some sort of treatment program, something of that nature. Was that part of his probation and all that? Did he have to do?
He doesn't have a license.
Right, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, has he had to do anything? What do we have, what evidence do we have that he has worked through what he needs to work through?
About a psychiatrist or somebody or tests that we heard. I could not hear it all.
Packet. So there's another folder.
Forensic consultation.
We're hearing officer, one point of clarification to go back on the record, just question was raised and I think the answer's in the packet.
It's up to the board, Mr. O'Quinn. Do you want to hear a clarification from Mr. O'Quinn? Mr. Simpson? You want to hear a clarification from Mr. O'Quinn?
Yes, I found it I found
Okay.
it.
Well, let's go back on the record. All right, we're back on the record. During the deliberations off the record of the board, there was a issue raised, and Mr. Quinn would like to respond to that. Mr. O'Quinn, if you could.
It was raised by Dr. Davenport. I just wanted to point out in his sentencing report, which is a sentencing order, which is an exhibit. It says in the bottom that as a condition of his probation, he shall remain on good behavior, commit no further offenses, pay all fines and costs. He shall complete anger management and domestic violence counseling as a condition of probation and have no contact with the victim in 80 hours of community service within 2 years.
Could you read that part again about
Done that?
not getting in trouble anymore?
Yeah, that's the part. It's,
Yeah.
he's gonna have to deal with that, but as he shall commit no further offenses punishable by law and pay all fees and costs as ordered.
But has he completed those requirements? The
He-
anger management and
He's not, he's said his probation officer is in the process of scheduling the classes. They have to tell him the class to take. The probation officer does.
Okay.
That's what he told me.
I've done all the community service hours
You're waiting on the probation officer to tell you the two classes to
for the
take.
anger management. That's what I'm waiting on.
Anger management, okay.
All right,
We're on the record on.
sure,
Questions, perhaps?
sure thing, Mr. President.
Have we ever approved an intern or any kind of permit, whether technician, intern? Someone who has a currently pending DUI or DWI?
Yeah. I would say no to both, not a current pending DWI and not a probation, person on probation for a felony offense. We have not, in my tenure, done it, and Dr. McCrady's saying in her tenure as well.
So hypothetically, if the DWI charge is not adjudicated, that could complicate his already ongoing probation. Would it be a reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, and I've practiced criminal law and usually if you get convicted of any other criminal offense, they'll change your sentence. He'll no longer, and I don't know for sure, but in my experience, he would definitely not be eligible for the first offender program and be expunged at the end of it and, likely do some jail time.
And then a second hypothetical, hypothetically, let's assume that the 6-year probation does not exist. But the DUI or the DWI that is currently pending, that were he to be convicted or whatever of that, then doesn't that usually also come with some probation?
In criminal court, yes. So that usually comes with a steep fine, alcohol treatment, and sometimes, breathalyzer on your car. It can be a very range of things. Usually on a DWI first offense, there's not any jail time, but you could potentially.
So to kind of piece that all together, we know that we have a currently pending 6-year probationary period that is not going to end until 2030, based on current status. That when that is considered in the context of the current DWI, it could get worse. And then we don't know the status of the DWI, and we won't know that at least until August, and that there's no history that you can recall that we have issued a permit with a current pending charge like that.
Right, even technicians, we don't issue permits if they have anything pending. So yeah, I think your assessment is correct.
Thank you.
What does the law say on giving somebody an intern license that's not enrolled in a college of pharmacy?
I mean, you can't have a pharmacist intern license if you're not in school. So I think, and I can bring Dr. Hartley in to discuss that, because I know there have been conversations between he and the dean about what to do with Mr. Magana. And if you'd like to hear from him, I can call him as a witness.
Sure.
Currently, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Having heard the question, I think that it might add some clarity to this situation, that the waiver that is being asked for is to him to be approvable for his intern license. In this chicken and egg scenario, is trying to figure out what order happens where. So it's not that you are being asked to grant a permit today, it's that you're being asked to say that it is approvable upon if he qualifies being in school.
Did this happen before or after we knew about the DUI charges?
All the other issues that I'm aware of happened before we knew about the DUI, like when he was.
Talking with UAMS.
I think he said UMS doesn't know about the DWI. Is that right?
They don't know from him, but
Yeah.
they don't know.
I haven't had a conversation with UMS on this in quite some time.
So we don't even know if they're willing to accept him if we were to be willing to grant a waiver.
No.
This is just kind of let's ask the board if they'll give us a intern license, and then we're gonna go back to UAMS and see if they'll let us in school.
Yeah, I think it's unique that it's two independent decisions, and we don't know what the other one may or may not be.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Mr. Quinn, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions of the floor director, but procedurally, I just need to make a note that I did close the evidentiary part of the record down, but we've also accepted a bunch of other additional testimony. So just for the record, the evidentiary part of the record was reopened when we gravitated into these other aspects. Mr. Quinn, do you have a question?
One question for Dr. Kirtley, based on his last comment. I mean, we don't know what UAMS is going to do. Except we do know that they're not going to let him back in if he doesn't have the ability to get an internship.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from anyone else? Director, thank you very much. All right, I'll try it again. I think we've even had closing statements, so I'm going to go ahead and just officially close down for the second time the evidentiary part of the record. We'll go off the record. The board's going to further deliberate, and hopefully they're closer to a decision in this matter. We are off the record.
All right, so we've had some additional clarification. So any discussion that may be precipitated by what we heard?
If this was a technician license, that we would have already said no. I believe if this were a pharmacist license, we've probably already said no. I think from what I'm hearing based upon the 6-year probation and an additional arrest incident. So explain to me the difference in this circumstance. Is it because of youth and the potential loss of being able to a degree? I'm just curious what everyone's thinking.
Well, I think the degree of urgency is being brought about by the timing. Because you got a limited amount of time to finish a degree once you've started it. And we're up against that, but it's been complicated by a couple of combinations of criminal activity. And we've heard already from Ms. Vales that she cannot recall an instance where we have granted a permit of any kind for somebody who has a pending drug type charge.
Can I ask a question? Or not?
We can go back on the record, Dr. Newsom.
Okay.
Or back on the record, board member has a question, please.
Yes. Have you had any mental health problems? Did you ever determine why you went off on that night?
I've never had any mental health problems prior to that night. Well, I mean, I'm never really, went to go get assessed or anything like that. But I mean, I was definitely feeling alone and isolated in Fayetteville with no family and friends. So maybe I was developing some mental health problems while I was in Fayetteville.
You haven't had any other incidences like this since?
No, ma'am.
This was a one-time thing?
Yes, and I didn't even know I had mental health problems until I got assessed by the psychiatrist. And I guess now I do.
Well, with all candor though, you said that at the time you were on Lexapro. So you had some mental health problems going on. I thought you said you had depression.
Well, I feel like we never really talked about diagnosing me. They just kind of put me on Lexapro that's just how I remember it. And I do remember that the reason I asked for it is because I was isolated. I was in Little Rock. I have my family and friends. And when I was in Fayetteville, it was just completely alone. And that's when I talked about Lexapro and got on it.
Any other questions? Ms. Vales?
You didn't, there's nothing in the record, but you didn't present any sort of mental illness defense in your criminal case with regard to the aggravated assault. You pled guilty, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and go off the record. Board will continue to deliberate.
Rodney, does it have to be this August? Does school have to start back this August? Does he have to start rotations this August?
I'm not sure how it works with UAMS. Might be the case at UAMS.
My concern is this kind of gave all of us pause at the informal. So we pushed it here. In the meantime, it's gotten worse. Don't have an outcome from that. Nice to see it. I think that does change if that affects his first offender program, if there is jail time. We would not approve a pharmacist to move forward right now without knowing the outcome of this. We'd say, no, we're going to wait and find out. And I get the sense of urgency because of school, but we don't know if that's really, and we're kind of putting ourselves into that sense of urgency. We don't really know that.
Well, and if he would have begun pharmacy school presumably in the fall, and if you have 6 years, so 6 years from 2019, I don't know if that incorporates this entire school year or if I think we're kind of backed up to the outer edge. Still thunder from Mr. Simpson. I'm not sure we want to set a precedent for approving a permit for somebody who has pending drug charges.
Drug charge or
Alcohol.
DW?
Drug alcohol.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Debbie.
I was just trying to think if we've ever, not put them on probation, but it seems to me that we had some people, I don't know that they'd done this exact thing, obviously, but it seems like we've had some people where we've, let them get their tech license or their intern license, come back and report to us in a year, but I don't know if that's just gonna make it, he spends more money going to school and if he can't get a license, I don't know that that's a
And
good
approve it
thing.
at that point.
Right, I don't know.
You know, we don't
That's-
have all the information, but we've got more information than we had at at the informal, but it's worse.
Yeah.
And so I hear what you're saying, but you know, even I feel like at the same time, if you say, oh, well, we'll send him back to school, but then if you turn him down, you're kind of doing him a disservice as well, you know.
Can we, suspend this or table this until everything is sorted out with the, DUI?
I mean, that seems like is only hope for an approval. If we don't do that, then I don't know how we can approve it.
Right.
So,
What if we voted that his internship was approvable, but require him to do monthly status reports on
Well, you don't know
only
the
issues like the DWI and so forth?
Don't know the outcome of that case, and you're gonna put him in a position potentially where you're gonna deny him in 3 months.
and he'll spend a lot of money between now and then.
Yeah.
Let's assume for a moment, hypothetically, that the DWI goes away as though it never happened. You still have the underlying 6-year. That's not gonna work itself through until 5 years from now.
And I feel like we've required significant therapy beyond, or for offenses that were more minor than this.
That were already licensed.
To me, if we're leaning toward not giving him a permit today because of the outstanding DWI, he needs to notify the college of that, wait for his court case. He can figure all that out and then come back to the board. I don't think we need to establish any timelines for him. This is his responsibility. It's his legal issues. He needs to work that out with the college, and then he can notify the board. That's just my opinion. And if he wants to come back for some reinstatement hearing at a later date, that's fine with me. If he's out of his time period where he can complete his coursework, then that's on him. Already tentative based on what happened not long ago, 2 years ago, and now with the DWI. For me, what became thin ice is broken ice at this point.
Question may be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so what is that? Is that become a motion to, or do we just take no action?
That was
Today?
what I was about to ask, is do we just take no action?
Well, we have an order and notice of hearing, don't we? We do. I believe we do. So I think we would have to go back on the record to get direction on that.
Go back on the record, give direction on that.
Sir, back on the record, I believe, it's the pleasure of the board at this point. Do you have another question or you want to make a motion?
Question.
All right.
If this fails, would we need to make findings of fact on the allegations and the charges? And then as a motion, potentially craft something where he can come back to the board at a later date for a request for reinstatement of his intern status?
I think that you need, since we're at a formal hearing at the board's request, I think you need to make findings regarding the allegations and the conclusions of law, just like you would any other hearing. I'm not sure you need, like you said, to put a course of action in place. Once he sorts out all of his issues with legal issues and the DWI is taken care of, he can always come back and reapply for reinstatement.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, he's already had a license denied at this point.
It was administratively denied and then set for informal, and now we're at a formal hearing. And so when we're at a formal hearing, I'll do an order, a notice of hearing.
May I suggest that we give him an opportunity to withdraw the request?
I think that when we're at the formal stage, no longer withdraw, because we do have an administrative denial, and we could do that, and we do it a lot in the informal, but I'm not sure that procedurally we can do it at the formal stage.
Board members, I don't know if you need to go back off the record at this point, or you can stay on. What's the pleasure of the board? What would you like to do? Further discussion off the record or stay on? Are you ready?
Can we put a stipulation on it that if he comes back, that there's some sort of written something from the school saying that if we prove the waiver or whatever it is, that he is admittable, so that we don't just waste more time on him? Well, if we're gonna give him the opportunity to come back, it seems like a waste of time if he can't get back into school anyway. Right, I guess I'm asking for proof of chicken or egg, whichever.
Okay, you're still on the record. Do you want to go off?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, we're off the record.
Take away the rate. What are you licenses? All we're doing is saying it's approvable.
I guess I'm just saying, since he's done the informal, now we're at the formal. It uses up time and all resources and whatnot. So is there something that we can say, like, if you're going to come back again, make sure that there's a reason? Such as that the school says he can be admitted if the waiver is approved or whatever they're asking for. Well, isn't that what we said? Right, but not for a waiver. They're just, that he's asking for a waiver, not for an approved license. So if they're coming back, are we saying he can't come back for a waiver? He would have to come back for a license? Right. That's what I'm saying.
He needs to make sure that the DUI is cleared up before he comes in. It's not on nothing to him.
I don't think you have to say it. I mean, I think you're saying
Got it.
right now, and I think it's.
How about we defer action unless and until he come back with at least a tentative approval, only awaiting our approval for the school to be readmitted and with the DUI matter resolved. But otherwise, we defer action till those two things happen. I'm sorry.
What is resolved?
We're not in a position to resolve anything other than by turning this down to end his pharmacy career. That's the only thing we can determine today. Everything else, any other action leaves everything up in the air.
Really what I was saying is in agreement with Dr. Jolly, but does that need to be in writing? That was what I was saying. And it may not need to be in writing, but that was my question.
And don't forget about the underlying 6-year probationary period, because that's still probation, and I don't recall, I mean, I've only been on the board 5 years, but I don't recall a time that we have ever approved someone was even within a month and we said, come back.
Well, actually, that probation is less like the probation we're used to hearing than it is a deferral of action on the charges by the court. The court hasn't taken any action where normally they would have taken action and had a sentence, and part of the punishment would be you're on probation. And they were going to keep you out of jail. And if you violate the probation, you go back to jail. This is a situation where the court is deferring action. They're not taking any action to impose a penalty. And I think that's a significant difference.
No, that's not correct.
But that doesn't take away the currently pending drug and alcohol or alcohol charge.
Excuse me.
I mean, what if we made a motion and had findings on the allegations and the charges? Charge one is that he is ineligible to hold an Arkansas pharmacy intern permit. So we find that true and ask him for the waiver. We deny the waiver request at this time until matters are resolved and he can come back and request reinstatement. And I just want to say for the record, I'm all for second chances, but his career, he has made himself ineligible to hold a permit, not the board. So.
And also he's 20, you're 29. It's not like you're
almost 30 years
16.
old. So I hope that, you know, he this works out well for him, but I think today that's just my opinion on what our motion needs to be.
Can you put that in a motion?
I think so.
Okay. Any other discussion before we go back on the record?
Back on the record, the board has, I believe, reached a decision in this matter. I'll turn it over to the president for a motion and vote. Mr. President.
All right, Dr. Jolly, you want to make a motion?
In the matter of Jose Alexis Magana, pharmacy intern applicant case number 2025-002. Board of Pharmacy finds that allegations 1 through 9 are proven. Are true. The charge is proven. Today, I make a motion that we deny the application for the intern license and waiver request. And Mr. Magana can come back to the board for reinstatement at a later date once he has resolution on his pending legal issues.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Newsom, second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes are unanimous.
As the president noted, the decision of the board was unanimous. I will ask staff to use that decision in writing. Make certain they responded as well. Mr. O'Quinn gets a copy of that notice of that decision along with a cover sheet or a letter that notifies them of their appeal rights. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call this hearing or close. Thank you all very much. Board members, do you need a 5-minute break?
Yes.
All right, we're off the record for 5 minutes.
I think we're ready to go back on the record. Oh, I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just letting you know.
No, I appreciate it.
I guess let's just put them on here.
All right, I'm good to go now. All right, next item on the agenda, style before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy in the matter of Miguel Martinez applicant. The case number is 2025-024. Ms. Ashley, would you be so kind, Ms. Vales, would you be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please?
Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
And I assume you are Mr. Martinez, is that right? All right. Mr. Martinez, I see that you are by yourself today. You're not represented by counsel, right? And you've read the order and notice of hearing here today, correct? All right. And you are ready to proceed today, is that right? Okay. So since you're a pro se, let me give you sort of a short version of how the process works, all right? Ms. Vales, well, I guess, is this a waiver? Does he bear the burden or do you bear the burden, Ms. Vales? I think,
It's my burden.
okay, it's your burden, just to make certain. So Ms. Vales is going to go first. I don't know what witnesses she's going to call. Perhaps, I'm guessing Dr. McCready, who's right next to her, and maybe even yourself, sir. She may ask you some questions. As a pro se litigant, you're entitled to ask questions of witnesses, but you certainly don't have to if you don't want to. It's not going to be held against you one way or the other. I will give you every opportunity to tell your side of the story to the board. As the hearing officer, I'm running the hearing for the benefit of the board, but it's also for the benefit of you, particularly since you're representing yourself. So as we go through this process, if you don't understand what's happening, you have a question, raise your hand, let me know. I want to make certain you get your story fully told in this tribunal, okay? And you're doing a very good job. I've got a court reporter here. She's taking or transcribing everything. If you're inclined to give a nod or an aha, or, you know, as opposed to a verbal response, I may stop and remind you to give a verbal response. I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm just trying to get a good record for you, okay? All right. Let me take judicial notice of both the statutes as well as the rules that are governing this hearing, which is Arkansas Code Annotated 17-92-101 at sequence, as well as the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act. I have a packet of exhibits here. They are 1 through 22. And I need to ask you, Mr. Martinez, if you have any objection to the admission of any of these exhibits. All right, thank you, sir. Without objection, 1 through 22 are admitted. And Mr. President, do you need an opportunity to go out? You or the board need an opportunity to go off the record, review, or we can just proceed? All right. I always ask just in case. Ms. Vales, do you want to do an opening statement?
I do not. I'll waive that. Just call my witness.
Since she's waived, I'm going to ask you to waive an opening statement. It's been my experience over the numerous years that I'm not going to tell you how many. Your opening statement is going to echo exactly what you're going to tell the board anyway. I'm going to, again, give you every opportunity to tell the board your side of the story, okay? All right. Ms. Vales, go ahead and well, why don't we swear both the witnesses in? Dr. McCready, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony that both of you are about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vales?
I'm going to call Dr. Brenda McCready, but I think we need a microphone change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Martinez, if you press that button so that light on there goes from red to green.
Hold it down a minute.
There you go. Perfect. And you just keep it on, okay?
Okay.
Please proceed, Ms. Vales.
Dr. McCready, state your position at the board, if you would.
I'm the Assistant Director at the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
As part of your duties as assistant director, do you review pharmacy technician applications?
I do.
And did you review the application of Miguel Martinez?
I did.
And did the staff administratively deny Mr. Martinez's application?
We did.
And is that based on his criminal history?
It is.
And can you describe as best you can sequentially what the criminal history is that caused staff to deny the application?
I can. On February 14th, 2016, the applicant was, Mr. Martinez was arrested and charged with assault on a family or household member and domestic battery in the 3rd degree. He does have a conviction for that charge. On March 5th, 2016, he was arrested and charged with DWI the first, reckless driving, refusal to submit to a chemical test. And on August 16th, he was sentenced to a treatment program with tests and 30 days of jail and 23 days suspended. On April 23rd, 2016, he was arrested for possession of drug paraphernalia, meth/cocaine, which was a Class D felony, and he was sentenced on December 12th, he was sentenced to drug court. On September 3rd of 2017, he was arrested and charged with aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, which is a Class D felony, public intoxication, resisting arrest, and on June 12th of 2018, he was sentenced to 3 years supervised probation at 120 days jail and payment of fines and courts for that charge. The arrest that he was sentenced to drug court was dismissed due to the charge that the previous charge with the assault on the police officer. On November 26, 2020, he was arrested for a DWI first again and a red light violation. He was convicted and sentenced to a fine of $830. Once again, on June 3rd, 2023, he was arrested for his DWI third offense, driving left of center and no signal. He was sentenced on September 27th, 2023 to 180 days jail with 90 days suspended and fines and court costs totaling $1,255. Based on the repeated criminal history, the board made the decision, staff made the decision to deny the application.
Okay, and just a point for clarification, we've pulled all of that based on the records that Mr. Martinez submitted as part of his application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and with regard to the case that went to drug court, that was a possession of drug paraphernalia charge, Class D felony, was it not?
That is correct.
And then he subsequently was arrested on an aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, a D felony, public intoxication resisting arrest.
That is correct.
And because of that interim arrest while in drug court, he was dismissed from drug court and sentenced to probation on all of his pending offenses.
That is correct.
And he's got, how many DWIs did we find on the record since 2016?
He has 2 DWI first and a DWI third.
So that's technically 3 total DWIs.
That is correct.
Okay. And because of all of these offenses, is it your recommendation that the administrative denial be upheld and his waiver denied?
It is.
Do you have anything else you want to add with regard to your investigation into this applicant?
I do not.
Ask the witness.
All right, Mr. Martinez, would you like to ask Dr. McCready any questions?
I would not.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Dr. McCready?
We know. Are there any lingering probation or anything from the DWI, the third offense?
I don't, that might be a better question for Mr. Martinez. I don't have any documentation that shows there's anything outstanding. But he might be able to answer that more distinctly.
Thank you.
So was he, I guess, convicted of the controlled substance felony?
He was.
Okay, so that's still on his record.
Yes, that is on his record, and I think it wouldn't have been had he maybe completed drug court, but since he got arrested in the interim, both are on his record.
And that's a felony on his record? Is that on the drug one? Is that felony? Because then he couldn't get a license anyway, right?
It
I
was
mean, the
ori-
DEA won't let him.
Right, it was originally charged as a Class D felony. And as a member of drug court, probably would have gotten that expunged and sealed and maybe been okay with the DEA waiver. But again, the interim arrest on the aggravated assault on a police officer resulted in a conviction for that original drug offense.
So interpret that then, I mean, as best we would know, would that or invalidate him from working in a pharmacy with controlled substances?
I think he would need a DEA waiver.
I noticed that his application indicates that he's an alien. Have you investigated his immigration status and ability to work?
We did not.
I noticed, for example, on the very exhibit 22, his social security card.
That's correct. He does say that. We did not further investigate that.
Any other board members? Follow up, Ms. Fields?
Rest.
All right. Ms. Martinez, your turn. Oh, I'm gonna wait. Please tell the board what the history was or what the background was and why it is that you're looking for a tech license and why you think you're worthy of a tech license. Go ahead.
With that being said, yes, I do, like he said, with my background when I got with aggravated assault with law enforcement, they did move me to probation, and it allowed me still to get my Act 346, which could expunge my charge with that felony. And all I had to do is talk to go in front of the judge and talk to him about it so I can get it expunged, which is pretty much all I need to do is talk to the judge and get it expunged. And I did finish the whole probation, and right now I don't have anything pending. Everything's been paid and everything's been, I did everything already for it. But on the history it's been a really long time for all those. And since then I've been working, and all I need is to get that license so I can do maintenance work. It's not technically for medicine right now. It's just for fixing the machines for the medicine. So that needs me to get a license for my technician. And that's why I am here, so I can get my license to work as a maintenance.
Okay. Ms. Vils, do you have any questions?
So Mr. Martinez, you've not yet sought to have your cases expunged, correct?
No, I haven't.
Okay. And all the court documents, you're saying you've paid for everything at this point. You have nothing pending, no probation officer, no fines are owed.
Fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah. My probation's been done for years already.
And do you have a job lined up to be a pharmacy technician?
They're basically waiting for me to show them that I got accepted.
And where is that?
It will be at a Walmart pharmacy.
And are they aware of your criminal background, all the things that you told us about your criminal background? Did Walmart know?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay. That's all I have.
All right, board members, any questions?
Can you explain that? I haven't heard of working on the machines. Are you talking about in the pharmacy?
Yeah, I work at a central fill, or it's gonna be at a central fill where they package the medicines and label them and ship them out. And what I'm gonna be doing, hopefully, is be the maintenance person that goes fix the machines that if they don't work anymore, I go and help them fix it. Not really doing anything with medicine, like weighing them out or anything like that.
But they said you had to be a tech to be.
Yeah, I have to get my license for sure.
So that's what the employer has told you, is you have to have a
Technician license. Yes, sir.
Are you already working for Walmart
I'm
doing
already
other
working at a
things?
different warehouse.
What do you do now?
It's shipping and handling, shipping boxes in and out.
And do you have a goal of doing something with the technician license, or like what
Uh,
is the path that you're on?
That's right now is going to maintenance is a huge jump in the career that I want. And then hopefully after that, just keep moving up with Walmart.
What is that career though? Is it in pharmacy or this is just sort of a detour?
This is, if it leads me to more with the technician license, if I get paid more, I would definitely go that path. But right now, the path that's leading me towards more money is being a maintenance person for the pharmacy.
Are you going to be expected to handle any of the medications when you go in and work on those machines? Or are you just going to like literally be working on the machine and not touching the medication?
I'll be literally working with machines.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Well, you-
since there's going to be medicine around me, they said that I'm going to be required the tech license. I won't be doing any of the courses that they do for technicians for the medicines and stuff like that. PTU. I won't have to be doing any of that. They just need me to have a tech license so I can, in order to work in there.
But you'll have access to medication.
They'll be around me, yes.
Controlled substances, do you know?
Not really sure, but I'm sure they will be.
Are you going to be expected to work on those machines when the facility's closed?
No,
Or
sir.
will it always be when there's staff is in the facility?
Whenever the staff is in the facility, I won't ever be by myself with medicine in there.
Okay.
It'd be drug counting.
I do have a question for Ms. Bales, but
I have
later.
questions too.
later.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a follow-up.
Tell me a little something about your arrest for possession of drug paraphernalia, meth, and cocaine.
That was 9 years ago, I believe, and I was hanging out with the bad group of people, and there was an empty Ziploc bag of they tested and ended up being cocaine, and it ended up being in my pocket because I was gonna throw away. And whenever they arrested me, they checked my pockets and it was in there, and they got me for paraphernalia.
How much meth and cocaine was it?
It was dust, so it was not even like a gram or anything like that. It was just an empty Ziploc bag.
And you were sentenced to drug court as a result of that?
Yes, sir.
And yet, less than a year later, you were arrested and charged with aggravated assault, public intoxication, and resisting arrest. Tell me what happened then.
That I fell asleep in the back of a car with a group of friends heading towards another city. And when they pulled us over, I was asleep in the back of the car. And when the police was holding me to check my pockets, I thought somebody was searching me, and I ended up getting up too quick, and I ended up throwing up on the officer, and ended up being aggravated assault with bodily fluids, I believe is what they called it. And then they arrested me for an aggravated assault for that.
So your drug of choice at that time was alcohol?
Alcohol.
What did being in drug court, or what did that mean? Was there some kind of treatment or monitoring of what you did, or?
It was treatment. It was mostly kind of like AA meetings, therapy in a way, and just drug test every once a week.
Did it do any good?
I feel like it did, but then I ended up drinking afterwards too, though. So
it didn't do any good.
it didn't, pretty much. Since then I haven't been drinking since like almost a couple of years now, since my last DWI. And I've been taking behavioral therapy as well with that.
If you'll excuse my use of this expression, when did it come to you to stop all of your bad activities?
A few years ago, after I got my last DWI, that's when I really faced jail time, went to jail. I lost my place, I lost my job, and pretty much my family kind of had it all with me too, so I had to do a change.
And what is your immigration status?
I'm a resident.
You're what?
Resident.
Is that like a green card?
Yeah, yes.
And when was that granted?
It got granted maybe 2011. I just got it renewed a couple, like 2 years ago for like another 9 years, I believe.
And all of these arrests that you had didn't have any effect on your resident status?
They checked it, but nothing has been going on with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members?
So out of all these things, you don't have any probation or anything that you're under right this minute?
At this minute, I'm not.
'Cause that's all basically we're 9 years ago, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have a history with methamphetamine. You had a charge that related to meth.
It was considered cocaine meth. It's under the same category. Yes.
And then alcohol.
Yes.
Okay, any involvement of marijuana?
No.
Okay. So you don't use marijuana?
No, I haven't. No, I had my medical card for previous reasons, but I've never gotten it or used it.
Okay. So just so you know, if you were to be granted a permit, you would not be able to have a technician permit and have a medical marijuana card.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Bales, do you have some follow-up?
I do. Mr. Martinez, when you were offered drug court by the prosecuting attorney?
Yes.
And usually in my experience, drug court is offered to people who admit they have an addictive disease and are seeking treatment. Was that true of your case?
No, it was for me to get my charges dropped or expunged.
Okay, so, but you had to do treatment,
Yes.
AA classes
Yes.
and things like that
Yes.
as a condition of your drug court
Yes, ma'am.
sentence. Okay. But you didn't have any issues with drugs or alcohol at that time?
I did not.
Okay.
Alcohol was more the problem.
And so why would you agree to go into drug court and spend your time in AA classes if you didn't have a problem?
Then I would have to be facing jail time or my charges wouldn't got expunged without.
You just took the drug court path as an easy way to get your case expunged.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's not expunged now.
No, right now it's not.
Yeah, okay. And so when you would be working at Walmart on these machines, do those machines have pills, medicine in them?
They keep running the vials.
Okay,
Yeah, vials be on them. And sometimes it's mostly vials that go past them.
okay. And then you had 3 DWIs since 2016. And so were you drinking in excess? Is alcohol an issue for you? It seems to be an issue for you legally because you keep getting arrested for DWI. But can you elaborate on that?
Those times I usually go out and just hang out with friends and I drink maybe one too much. And when I get pulled over, it's above the limit that I'm supposed to be driving in. And
So what's one too much? What's your drink of choice?
I usually just drink beer.
How much beer? Cans,
5
40
cans.
ounces,
4 to 5 cans.
what
4
about
ounces.
cans? Okay. All right, and you realize, so you've had 3. And are you aware that the 4th one is, the penalty goes up significantly?
It's a felony.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, that's all the questions I have for him.
All right, based on the line of questions from Ms. Bales, any follow-up from the board? If not, how about closing statements, Ms. Bales?
Just quickly,
Can I ask Ms. Fields a
Oh, sure.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Jolly.
It's okay. Is there anything in the board's rules or from a statutory standpoint that for someone that was coming in and working on automation machines or any type of equipment in the pharmacy, are they required to have their pharmacy permit? I've always thought they just had to be monitored by, you had to have a pharmacist in there to supervise what they were doing. But that's always been my understanding, but there's no requirement to actually
I
a
think
permit?
that we would not have that requirement, but Walmart probably does, as I'm not disputing what Mr. Martinez says. And I think if they want him to have a pharmacy technician license, they might have to ask for a DEA waiver as well, which I'm not sure is Walmart's policy to do so. But that's my understanding of that situation.
One more thing. I think anytime there's been a drug felony, even though he wouldn't be around, I mean, he wouldn't be doing technician duties, he still is wanting a technician duty. I don't think with an active felony, I don't think we've given a tech license because he's not gonna be able to get a DEA waiver.
That's correct. I think we had one that was an issue that completed drug court successfully, and we let her explore the opportunity of getting a DEA waiver. But other than that, that generally would equate into denial. And keep in mind, you can give him a pharmacy technician license, but he can leave Walmart and go work in any pharmacy if you give it to him. It's not going to be restricted to him working on machines in Walmart.
Well, that's always been sort of one of the concerns is that waiver is only good for a specific location, correct?
the
DEA waiver,
Waiver
yes.
is only good for a specific DEA registration permit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have no responsibility regarding the waiver. I mean, can we issue a permit irrespective of whether or not they have a DEA waiver?
We have not in the past issued it. We had one case since I've been here where you said staff could issue it if they did get a DEA waiver. That person did end up being able to do that for one particular pharmacy. But in general, we don't play any role in getting the DEA waiver. And so we've generally denied those. And that's why we denied it as a staff, or one of the many
More
reasons.
charges and we require some sort of extensive evaluation. I mean, he's got 3 anti-drug charges.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to be clear, he would in fact require a DEA waiver.
With a drug conviction, a D felony drug conviction, it's my belief that he would, according to the law, need a DEA waiver for any facility that he worked in.
What flags that? Like, how do they,
A felony drug
but, I
conviction.
mean, how did they, like, does Walmart know that automatically, or is that something that the board tells?
I mean, I have been in contact with people and said that they needed the DEA waiver and sort of guided them on who to contact. But I believe they reached out to us after their pharmacy technician applicant came back to them and told them what happened at the hearing.
Any other board members?
So if a board grants a technician permit to someone that has a felony drug conviction, they have to get the waiver from the DEA. But even if they were able to get that, which my understanding is it's rare, and then they go to another pharmacy location and start working, whose responsibility is it at that point? Is it the registrant's responsibility to ensure that a waiver's in place?
Yes,
It
the
doesn't come
registrant.
back on the board of pharmacy for granting the
It
permit.
doesn't come back on the board of pharmacy. It's the registrant's duty to get the DEA waiver.
The waiver's not on him, the waiver's at the
The
facility.
facility.
Yes,
But I would caution of if we grant the license, that makes most employers think he's okay. I
Agreed.
mean, I don't know how, unless the employer runs the right kind of sophisticated test, they may not know he needs a waiver, is my concern.
right. I agree.
Anything else from the board? If not, how about closing statements?
Staff would ask that you uphold our administrative denial and not grant Mr. Martinez a waiver. He does have a felony drug conviction that we've discussed. He has an interim aggravated assault. These are all deniable charges that you can deny him for under his waiver. You can deny his waiver under the statute for those two offenses alone. And then he, on top of that, has 3 DWIs, all since 2016. So as a staff, we would ask that you uphold our denial and deny his waiver and not allow him to get his pharmacy tech license, because if you do, even if you think he's just going to go work on machines at Walmart, he can take that license and go anywhere. And I think Dr. Mack is correct that, a pharmacy may not know his complete background and know that they need to get a waiver. And they sort of rely in general on the board's decision about whether or not to grant licenses. And so we have that to concern ourselves with. So we would ask that his application be denied and his waiver not be granted.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Mr. Martinez, you get the last say. Anything else you want to tell the board before they go off the record and start deliberating?
That would be it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to go ahead and call the evidentiary part of the record to a close. We'll go off the record. The board will deliberate, and once they reach a decision, they'll come up back on the record and announce that decision with a motion and vote. We are off the record.
All right, so we've heard the case presented. It's quite an impressive list of criminal charges that have occurred. On one hand, Mr. Martinez has been quite forthcoming and very straightforward about his history. Unfortunately, the latest is a third DWI charge that was literally just 2 years ago. And so that is kind of compared against what our usual yardstick is how far back we're willing to go. His probation is done, but there's also concern about potentially needing a DEA waiver and the fact that this tech license could perpetuate in the future without it. So with that, I'd like to open it up for conversation.
I think that we have enough evidence here to deny his history, 3 DWIs, Class D felony. It's too much water under the bridge at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we've got much of a choice here. DWI was only, the third DWI was only 2 years ago. But even if we just push that off to the side, the controlled substance felony is just, we've dealt with that multiple times in the past, and that's just not something that we've ever really historically granted permits with that hanging over. So
I think too, if I remember correctly, the time that we had did the thing with the DEA waiver and all of that, she could not progress further in her career very specifically with, regard to, I think it was Walgreens or whatever, it doesn't matter. But with this situation, maintenance on a machine like that there are other routes that you can go. We're not blocking his career in this case. And I think that
well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to be clear on whether technically a permit's required to do what it is.
that makes me think.
I realize that's, well, yeah, I don't know, but it's an employer decision at that point. We don't have any control over that, but I just wanted clarification that we don't have anything in our regs that would require a permit just to work on machines. My hope would be that he could continue to work on the machines and do his job without doing tech duties.
Any additional comments? So far, I've heard 3 dissenting opinions. Together. Someone to make a motion? Are we at that point?
I'll do it.
Gibson, do you, oh, you do?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, all right.
Dr. Joe, you have the voting those they're hearing up.
I do.
You can go back on the record.
We're back on the record. The board has reached a decision in this matter. I'll turn it over to the president for a motion and vote. Mr.
Dr.
President.
Dolly?
In the matter of Miguel Martinez, pharmacy technician applicant, case number 20250-024. Allegations 1 through 10 having been shown to be true, and charge 1 having been proven, make a motion that we uphold the administrative denial and deny the waiver.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Mack. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes are unanimous.
As President noted, the decision of the board was unanimous. I will ask the staff to reduce that decision to writing. Make certain that Mr. Martinez gets a copy of it along with an information sheet or letter that notifies him of his appeal rights. If there are no further questions or comments, I will call this into a close. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Yep.
No, thank you, guys.
Hopefully the discussion we had about the BDA and the waiver.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
One other hearing that we need to put on the record. I have a few matters that we don't need to be on the record. So I'd like to do. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 hearings that need to be on the record. We need to sound the hall for 1 person. And then we have a few matters that we wouldn't need our court reporter and our hearing officer for. So I'm going to kind of do that in that order, if that's okay. So I'm going to take up first Tiffany Patton, who is outside waiting.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Ms. Vales, you ready? I am.
Okay. This next item on the agenda is styled before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy in the matter of Tiffany Patton applicant. The case number is 2025-025. Ms. Vales, would you be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please?
Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
Ms. Patton, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Tiffany Patton, I'm the applicant.
All right. Ms. Patton, my name is Charlie Moulton. I'm the hearing officer for this proceeding.
Yes, sir.
You seem a bit nervous, are you?
I just been waiting all day and I was,
And I'm sure and I know that the board appreciates your patience.
oh no, I'm
Okay.
saying like the process. I just been
Oh.
waiting all day.
Okay, so let me explain to you how the process works, all right? Well, before I do that, let me take judicial notice of both the statutes as well as the rules that are governing this proceeding. And that is Arkansas Code annotated 1792-101 at sequence, as well as the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act. So I need to ask you, Ms. Patton, you're here this afternoon, you're representing yourself, right?
Yes, because when I got the letter, I didn't know, because I've been going through the process for some months, and it was like that I didn't have to hire an attorney.
No. You don't have to hire an attorney. It's not necessary. You can represent yourself. But you've read the order and notice of hearing, have you not? Okay.
Yes, I have.
And you are ready to proceed this afternoon, right?
Sir.
Okay. So what's going to happen is that Ms. Vale, who represents the staff, they're going to give you a nicer package to flip through there. All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Vales represents the staff. She bears the burden. She's going to go first, okay? She's going to call witnesses or a witness, ask questions of that witness. And once she's done asking questions, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask that witness questions as well, because you're representing yourself. You don't have to ask questions if you don't want to. Don't feel compelled to do it. The board's not going to hold it against you if you don't ask questions.
Yes.
Once she's done with her case, it'll be your turn to tell your side of the story to the board.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you the floor. You can tell them what happened, okay? And you can tell them why you want a tech license, all right? After you're done explaining the background and why you want a tech license, Ms. Vales may ask you some questions. More likely than not, the board's gonna ask you some questions as well. Once all the testimony and evidence is done, they go off the record, they deliberate, they make a decision, and then they come back on the record and announce it with a motion and a vote. As we go through this, if you don't understand what's happening or you have a question, raise your hand, let me know, because my job as the hearing officer, I don't make the decision, but I run the hearing. And I run it for the benefit of the board, but I also run it for the benefit of you, particularly when you're not represented by counsel.
Yes, sir.
So, just take a deep breath. Don't be nervous. Tell your side of the story. We'll see what happens, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. You're doing a great job too. I get a court reporter. It's really important to give a verbal response.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Have they all seen all the letters and stuff from so that's all in there?
In there.
I think,
Okay.
I think everything is in there, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain everything is in there. Let me ask you this. Oh, and in terms of a verbal answer, if you tend to give a nod of the head or an aha, some people do that. I may stop the proceedings to remind you to give a verbal response. I'm not doing it to be mean. I just need to make a good record for you.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So we do have this packet that you have in front of you.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
And there are 18 exhibits in that packet. And I need to ask you, because you're representing yourself, if you have an objection to the admission of any of these exhibits. And if you look at the front page, the very front page, there's like a glossary of what's in the packet. You look through that pretty quickly and it'll tell you or give you an indication what these documents are.
Yes, sir.
To give you a better understanding, it's basically the entire file
It
of what you've submitted and what they put together, okay?
Yes, sir.
Any objection to the
No.
admission of any of these?
No objections. I think
Okay.
everything is.
Understood. Thank
Yes.
you so much for not objecting. Exhibits 1 through 18 are admitted. Ma'am, did you bring anything with you today that might not be in this package that you want the board to take a look at? Anything beyond what's in there?
No, all of my orders to seal and everything is in here. My substance abuse, I think everything is here from where I hadn't read it, but I read here. All of this is here, so.
Okay.
And I was going day by day, with the pharmacy board, like getting stuff that they needed when I first told them I had a background. So I think it's all here. It looked like it's all
It
here.
looks like it's all in there, but I wondered like if you had brought letters of reference or things of that nature or.
I had sent them, I don't see them in here. That's what I was kind of looking for. People did send me recommendations, but I don't see them in in here and I don't see the letter that I wrote. No, here it is. I have the letter I wrote, but it should have been, something from a state police officer and some more people. I just don't,
Well, I don't know about any of that, ma'am.
that's the
Yeah,
only thing.
there's there's a letter in here from Sherwood Court. Is that what you're referring to?
No, it was a state trooper that was trying to prove my worthiness, and it was one from a Boys and Girls Club. I had emailed them a few months ago. That's the only thing's not in there, but everything else is.
I wish you brought copies of that with you.
No, I don't
Unfortunately,
have
there's not much I can do about it if it's not in that package and you haven't brought copies with you.
No, I didn't. It's just
Yeah.
on my phone. It's in the email, but I don't
That's okay.
have, I don't have a copy.
It's all right. What I do have to do at this point is I have to swear both of you in. So would you be
Okay.
so kind as to raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you both very much. All right, Ms. Vils.
I'm going to waive opening and call my first witness, Dr. Brenda McCready.
Please proceed.
Dr. McCready, state your job title here at the Board of Pharmacy.
I'm the Assistant Director at the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
As part of your duties as Assistant Director, do you review pharmacy technician applications?
I do.
And did you have reason to review the application of Tiffany Patton?
I did.
And
Hold on a second. You're doing what I told you to ask you not to do, which is you're giving them hmms as opposed to verbal yeses or nos. So could you start over again? I think I just heard them hmms. Is that right? Am I missing something? Were you saying yes?
Oh, I didn't say anything. The floor was hers.
Oh.
Yeah, she not talking to
Okay.
me. She was
I
speaking
just
to
heard,
the.
I'm sorry, Dr. McCready. I just heard hmms. Were you saying Okay.
That wasn't us. We promise.
It's late in the day.
day, I know.
Picking up other things.
I could.
Apologies. Please proceed, Ms.
I can
Vales.
start over. Dr. McCready, you are the Assistant Director of the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy, correct?
I am.
And as part of your duties in that role, do you review pharmacy technician applications?
I do.
And did you have a reason to review the application of Tiffany Patton?
I did.
And you have reviewed the exhibits and the materials that she has turned in to supplement her application, correct?
I have, yes.
And we administratively denied her application. Is that right?
That is correct.
And can you tell the board why we made that decision?
Because of the criminal background information that came back on her as when we ran her background report.
And there's a lot of documentation that Ms. Patton has submitted for cases that were sealed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Does the board have access to sealed documents?
Yes, the board does have access to see sealed cases because of the type of licensing and type thing that we issue.
Okay, but in Ms. Patton's application for a lot of these charges, we just have that order to seal. Is that correct?
We asked for court documents. We did not receive any. All we received were the documents showing where they were sealed.
Okay, so what convictions did Ms. Patton have on her record that caused us to deny her application?
On January 1 of 2015, she was charged and convicted of forgery in the second degree. There were 2 counts. She was sentenced to 3 years probation, 50 hours of community service work, and 1 day in jail. She also had a conviction on November 19th, 2021. She was arrested on assault in the 3rd degree and a DWI first. She was convicted of the DWI, but not convicted of the assault.
And there were several cases, like I said, that had orders to seal that you were concerned about or wanted to review. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
And let's just look at exhibit number 11, which is an order to seal the record because it's null, prost, and dismissed. Is that?
That
what
is
you
correct. There was an
described that?
order to seal and obstructing government operations, hindering law enforcement, and possession of controlled substance and drug paraphernalia. The prosecuting attorney did not file charges in that case.
regardless of whether an applicant gets convicted of a drug offense, are we as a staff concerned about a pharmacy technician applicant where there's an indication of potential drug use?
We are.
And let me refer to you to Exhibit 15. And that is a document that Ms. Patton submitted as part of her application.
It is a document that certifies that Tiffany Patton has successfully completed a substance abuse treatment program, and it was issued on November 30th of 2023.
And we don't have any context of the reason or why Ms. Patton completed a substance abuse treatment program, do we?
not.
Did that cause you concern when reviewing her application about potential substance abuse?
It did.
And so is there any other reasons that you want to outline why we denied Ms. Patton's application?
No, I think that covers it.
Is it your recommendation that the board uphold our denial and deny her waiver of the criminal convictions?
It is.
Okay. Anything else you want to add that we have not gone over?
No, ma'am.
Ask the witness.
Ms. Patton, do you want to ask Dr. McCready any questions?
I would. Okay. Exhibit 16, exhibit 15, I'm sorry. The substance abuse, at the bottom, it has my birthday, well, my birthday is actually incorrect, but my driver's license number, violation date, and it shows everything here. This is what I was asked to bring in. So are you saying that this wasn't significant enough to say that this went with the DUI?
No, what I was saying was this is not a court document. This is a certificate of completion of a substance abuse program. It's not actually the court documents that we request.
Oh, well, this is what they gave me when I went to driver's control, because that's what Miss Bryant asked me, that I, in the state of Arkansas, that if you have a DUI, even if you was driving or not, you have to take a class, you have to have your everything for 6 months. So I went because this is my first time applying for a license and getting denied. So I'm new to this. So
Are you asking her a question?
yes, well, I was asking, so this wasn't significant enough?
No, we ask for the court documents when you go to court and what happened and all of that. And this is just showing that you completed a treatment course.
Oh, I'm not in here.
We didn't have any court documents. I didn't see any.
So, I guess this would be page 10, the stuff from the city of Benton. That's when it went to the DUI and the family household member. And I guess I can tell that story later on. It doesn't reflect back to it because the dates, they go together. And I went into every courthouse and I got them I paid $5 for them to do it. Some of the stuff is in here and some of it's not. I see the stuff from Judge Compton asking to seal their record and everything, but
Ms. Patton, so what you're doing right now is testifying?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
It's fine, as opposed to.
That's fine. You don't have to answer the question, witness. It's
Well, it
okay.
wasn't really a question. It was you explaining what
No,
you're
I was
saying.
trying to say, like, well, I delivered it wrong. Like, I was trying to ask her, so in exhibit 10, it doesn't go with 15. But because if I was wrong, I was wrong. I didn't do it right. But those two papers, they were supposed to go together because that was part of the court order. And I think her name was Miss Christy Bryant, told me anything that had to go with the DUI, make sure I turned everything in. So I had to go to a place where I was ordered and driver's control gave me that.
I understand.
So I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So let me ask you, do you have a question for her?
No, I told her that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members, any questions? If not, Ms. Vales?
We rest.
All right, now's your turn to explain what happened, Ms. Patton.
Okay,
And you can take them through whatever it is you think is important.
okay,
But I'm going to remind you as well, it would be very important to you to explain to the board why you want a tech license, okay?
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
okay. Thank each of every one of y'all for allowing me to speak. The reason I want to take a license because I am a changed person, and some things, when you listen to my testimony, you will see why it's so many non-process things done. And I was a person, if they'll read through, the only thing I ever had was a hot check and my identity was stolen. That's another reason my date of birth is wrong on a driver's control, because before they start asking for two types of thing and people worked at DMV, I guess giving people other people's thing, they put the birthday of 1979. So I was born in 1980 and she has that. But the reason I really want to take a license because I can make a difference. I have watched a lot of these board things and I took this class thinking that I was bettering myself, but all while I was taking it, I was researching myself. I was reading on here, when you can't have a DUI, you can't do this, you can't have a felon. So when I was getting my license, I was kind of misled at the school. So I went up to them and I told them, and they said, well, when I called over here, they told me I have a chance to explain everything. And I just really want to break everything down. Why did I come from a high check to a convicted felon? And even last year, I didn't even know I was a convicted felon because everything was supposed to be sealed when it happened, because I did testimony from when I had got assaulted in my earlier years, and some kind of way it came back up when some stuff went on with my children. So, are y'all ready now for me to say, okay, so we'll start with the first thing she said, my charge that I did go get sealed, from 2015, I did have a forgery. I was married to a guy named Stephen Williams, and when he was away and I put the check in our account, but by it's not being his signature, I agreed with the state that was criminal, that it was, even though after I signed, once you make a plea deal, you can't take it back. That's why you see it wasn't any restitution, because he didn't ask for any. And then I think she said something about when I went to Bryant, it was the state decided not to press charges on me. My son was killed in 2019. My son was in an altercation with a Little Rock Police Department. That's when all our lives changed. 2020, he was killed. Last person was seen by a police officer. So we started getting harassed by certain officers. They're not working there anymore. So the state wasn't going to press charge, but it was one particular officer that pulled over me and my boyfriend at the time. He did have some, marijuana residue in the car. And when we went to court, he took his charge and he was like, she doesn't even smoke. And even if you read any of those things from the probation, I have never failed a drug test. I don't do drugs at all. That's what happened with that case. So they know I processed that. And then anything in Bryant was always non-processed. And then when I said I didn't know that I was a convicted felon, my children had something in my house, and by the house being in my name, they tried to charge me with a certain person with firearm. The state went back and when I started getting my record sealed and they talked to my attorneys and they knew it wasn't mine, and my son said that was his stuff in my closet. What happened was then they non-processed it. It took like almost a year because the state has 2 times and then we have 2 times. And I had a regular lawyer, and then stuff started going bad. Then I had to get a public defender. And both of the public defenders had represented my sons in a previous case. So it took like almost a year to get it null processed, but everybody was in agreement that they knew that wasn't my type of crime. And the DUI is I was dating this guy named Sean Williams, and I was in Benton where my kid's name was like ringing a bell. One of my son's name was ringing a bell. Me and Sean, that's the letter that I hate that's not in here. I can't find it, but he wrote a letter. So the vehicle was in my name. Sean had a warrant out of Little Rock. It wasn't very much. He had a warrant out of Little Rock, and I had been drinking that night. But Sean turned on the vehicle, and the lady was like, "Well, how was this car gonna move and this and that?" And when I got to court, again, I had a public defender, and I said, well, I was drinking. Can you get a public detox? And the public defender said, not the she was like, no, she can get it was a worse charge than the battery. She was like, she can get that. And I looked on my paperwork and I was like, no, because I can't get it in that. I said, when I do the community service or whatever for the DUI, and they gave me 1,500 hours of $1,500 fine. And then they gave me the breathing thing, and they gave me the exhibit, the substance abuse class. And that's what I took it. And I took another class as well, but it's not in here either. It was impact, like if I was to get behind the wheel, how I could have killed somebody and their children and stuff. Even though I wasn't driving, I felt like I did learn a lot, because what if I did get upset enough to drive? And it was not me and the guy, it was me and his mom. His mom had pushed me, but nobody had got hurt that night. And they came to court to testify, the mom and the son.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patton. I'm going to ask Ms. Vales if she has any questions of you. Okay. Ms. Vales, any questions?
A couple. So Ms. Patton, you and I have talked about all of this paperwork and things like that earlier. Yes. And so I think that we talked about, us being concerned about, even though these charges were dismissed, they're pretty serious.
They are
charges. And so could you speak to how you kept finding yourself in this kind of trouble?
Yes, it didn't start. If you will see, everything started after 2019. I went on the news thing with my son. I had him turn himself in. He was in an altercation in Arkansas, in Little Rock, Arkansas, by the John Barrow area. And it was supposed to have been a shootout with the police, but later on finding out the police actually shot my son.
And so they were looking for him?
They were looking, yeah, no, they weren't, they didn't have to look for him. I turned them in.
Okay.
Whenever he gave me a call and he said that he was injured, I took him to Baptist, and my mom, Sharon Patton, for the record, she called a detective in Little Rock, and they met us at Baptist Hospital.
Okay, so you're saying like the possession and the paraphernalia and the possession of firearms by certain persons, you feel like you were charged with those as some sort of retaliation by the police?
Yes.
And why do you feel that way?
Because it was an ongoing thing with my sons. He was accused of shooting a police officer, and they're like brothers, because I have a lot of them in my family. Like they stick together, but it was this one particular officer, not all of them. Some of them did the research, and they gave our family all kind of apologies and everything. They helped me with my.
That's how you got him dropped eventually.
Yes.
Okay. And so, when you got these dropped, they were dropped not after a trial or any kind of sentence. They were dropped before the judge told you anything you had to do.
Yes, I never had to go to trial for any of them. The reason it took so long for them to get dropped is because I had Bill James as my attorney, and he got a little costly because they kept giving me new court dates. So then I went and I got a public defender, which he was a really good public defender. And then when I get up there, they said that he had been on one of my other son's cases, and it was a conflict of interest.
And so you didn't, so normally, as a licensing board of medical professionals, we can see all the documents about all the cases, whether they're sealed or not. But what we have here is just the orders to seal. Is that correct?
That's correct on that. But the forgery, I actually went to court and I made a deal Now,
Right, and you pled guilty and were convicted of that.
yeah, yes, ma'am, but the
And
rest.
as well as the DWI.
I think it was a DUI, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the difference, but I think on my, when I go get on my, driving jobs, it's a DUI.
And regardless, the substance abuse treatment program you did as part of a court order for that case.
Yes, it was court ordered. It was court ordered by the, state of Arkansas by driver's control. That was one of the requirements to get my driver's license back.
When you got the DWI, and you've taken responsibility for that, how much had you been drinking?
My public defender said it was like a point from being something. He said he watched the video and he said, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you because you don't never need to drink again. And I was like, what? So I watched the video a little bit and I was so embarrassed. I was like,
So you feel like you were intoxicated?
yeah, I was intoxicated, but it doesn't take a lot for me.
So what did you have to drink?
I think some wine.
Like how much?
2 glasses.
2 glasses of wine?
Yes.
And how, after you had 2 glasses of wine, how long was it before you were in the car and pulled over?
Oh, I wasn't pulled over. That's the problem. We were parked. We was at his mother's house.
Okay. Were you drinking in the car?
No, we weren't drinking in the car.
Did you have contact with the police?
His mom called the police. That's why she came to court to testify. Like I couldn't get all that transcript, but
You were behind the wheel.
no, I wasn't. You don't have to be. This is what they
I'm
said.
asking.
You don't have to be behind the wheel if the car is running in the state of Arkansas and it's your vehicle.
Oh, it was your car?
It was my car.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And you've taken responsibility for that?
Yeah.
Do
Yes,
you
I
feel
did.
like you needed that substance abuse program or did you do it solely because it was court ordered?
It was the court order, and I enjoyed taking it because I learned stuff that I didn't know. I got to listen to parents who really lost children because it's another class, a victim impact class I took too. And I was like, I'm glad I didn't drive the car and I wouldn't drive like that because these are parents. I lost a child, but it wasn't to that. So I see how they feel.
So do you have a job lined up to be a pharmacy technician?
Well, I had one at Baptist, but I hadn't, it been so long. I've been waiting to have this meeting and, they tell me, and without the license, they can't finish the
Sure.
process.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Board members, any questions? Everybody's uncharacteristically quiet. Ms. Vales, how about a closing statement?
I mean, we denied this application because even if you don't take into account any of those charges that she was dismissed from, which I don't think you should, we're still left with a forgery, which is a violation involving, fraud and misrepresentation, which is not something that you would characteristic of a pharmacy technician. And then we have a DWI, which indicates potentially an alcohol problem. And that DWI was as late as 2021. So that's why we felt we denied the application, as well as, wanting more information about some of these other cases. But we would ask that you uphold our denial and not grant her waiver.
Thank you, Ms. Vales. Ms. Patton, one more time, why is it that you want a tech license? Would you be so kind as to tell the board again?
Because I see people that don't have a criminal background that go commit offenses that I would never do. And I think that I'll be a good person. And another thing, I worked in human researches where we had to deny a lot of people from backgrounds before I had a background. And once we got the okay to let them work, they were some of the best employees. Because some people that have so much to lose, they're not going to lose something. And this is not just a state level. I wouldn't be getting no community service, no two years probation or 3 years probation. I would go to the big house, and I read all of that, and we learned that in class as well, that this is a serious job, and I will take my job serious. As I have taken, because I took my time to go and I waited out, like not working in my field that I'm in now. when I had these charges pending on me, it was hard for me to even work at Amazon. So I know how important it is. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. I'm going to call the evidentiary part of the record we're closed. We're going to go ahead and go off the record. The board's going to deliberate off the record, and once they reach a decision, they'll come back on the record and announce that with a motion and a vote. We are off the record.
Okay.
We've heard another case. With law enforcement. But frankly, Ms. Patton has been forthcoming and candid about explaining that. Two of them, though, are the only two that kind of stand out that had charges. One is 10 years old and the other is a more recent DUI or DWI charge, but 4 years ago, and based on the record, is related to an event around the time that her son was killed. So I kind of see that as the background. If we can begin conversation from there.
We have an issue with Bruno.
Dr. Davenport.
I don't really either. I got a little, so the one DWI or DUI, whichever, is the one that she said was, it was her car, but it was on, but she wasn't in it, right?
Was it driving?
Right, okay.
I don't guess we know if she was gonna drive, but
Right,
she
sure.
wasn't driving.
Couple of okays. Is that the sentiment, Dr. Newsom? All right, would anyone like to make a motion? Okay. Oh, so somebody else. Okay, all right, we'll go back. We're ready to make a motion. We'll go back on the record.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that.
Go back.
Okay, back on.
All right, we're back on the record. The board has reached a decision in this matter. I'll turn over to the president for the motion and the vote. Mr. President.
Okay, Dr. Newsom, you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, that we grant Tiffany Patton her, pharmacy technician license.
Dr. Newsom, would you be so kind as to amend that? I don't know what you want to do with the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Part of that?
Very begin.
Here we go. We found the allegations are true and charges are proven, but we're gonna go ahead and grant her license.
All right, that's your motion, Dr. Newsom?
I'll second.
We have a second by Dr. Mack. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry it. They're unanimous.
Yes, sir. I will ask staff to reduce that to writing. Ms. Patton, you're going to get a copy of this decision. It'll have an information sheet on the cover letter in terms of, they have to do this in terms of the APA. That tells you about your appeal rights, but since you prevailed, I doubt sincerely you're going to be appealing, but it'll be there anyway, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank y'all.
With that, we are off the record.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I've got we need to sound the hall for two,
You still need me?
yeah, briefly. We
Okay.
need to sound the hall for two cases. And I'll rest on the record if they're not here. But we need to sound the hall for Delana DePriest and Melissa Gouda.
All right, well, we have board members that are disappearing, so hold on.
Sound of the hall. Dr. Kirtley. You,
Sounds like all certainly appreciate not here. No one.
All right, you sounded,
We just wanted to start.
okay, Director, you sounded the hall for Ms. Bills and Ms. Gada, is that right?
and if we go briefly on,
Oh, the priest and Gada,
yes,
sorry.
if we
Okay.
could go briefly on the record on both, we could start with Mr. Priest.
Sure thing. I don't have a docket number for either one of them. Maybe we got to get that in the record as well.
Yeah,
Ms.
this is
Rales?
Gouda.
All right, we're gonna do Gada first.
Sure.
All right, next item on the agenda. Excuse me, style before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy. In the matter of Melissa Gada, PD 13441, case number 2024 CE-011. Let me take judicial notice about the statutes as well as the rules that are governing this proceeding. Ms. Rales, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. If you would be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Ashley Vales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
Okay, and I've got how many exhibits do I have here, Ms. Vales? 5?
She had 5 exhibits.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and admit exhibits 1 through 5 into the record. And I will also note for the record, is there something in here in terms of service, Ms. Vales? Service was maintained? Or do we need some testimony regarding that?
We can take some testimony regarding that if you would like. I do have, I'm sorry. So exhibit 3
All right,
is the cover letter for the order and notice of hearing. Behind that is a copy of the green card sent to Ms. Gauda's last known address. And behind that is USPS tracking that certified mail. And it looks like delivery was attempted. By statute, we're required to send it to her last known address that we have in our system. And I believe exhibit 3 proves that we did that.
all right, do you need any further testimony from anybody on this one?
I would just do a small opening just to explain the situation. Dr. Gauda was charged with continuing education violations. Dr. McCready has worked with her. We had offered her consent agreements and had attempted several to make contact with her and have heard nothing from her with regard to her CE violations.
I did get an email back from her that stated that she had made up some hours in 2024. And so she felt like she had completed her requirements. I explained to her that only hours from 2022 and 2023 would count on this biennial renewal. And at that time, she had 18 home study hours and 0 live hours. So I explained to her that she was short 12 live hours.
And she has not gotten herself sort of back in compliance.
She has not.
Dr. McCready, I'm going to do it in the opposite. You swore from the testimony you just gave, as well as the testimony you might give. It's going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. McCready, you want to add?
No.
Normally the recommendation is to complete double the hours and pay a fine. Is that your recommendation with regard to Ms. Gauda, considering the correspondence or lack of correspondence?
In previous hearings, we have not been able to resolve the issue. We have asked for a revocation. The board has normally done a revocation, fined them the $100 per hour, and ruled that they would have to make up twice the CE, and then they have charged an investigative cost based on the number of hours spent on the hearing. If the respondent pays the fine and makes up the hours, at that point, they have been allowed to reapply to get that revocation taken off of their license.
Is that your recommendation for the board today?
It is.
Anything else you want to add?
I've probably spent about 80 hours on this.
We rest.
Apologies, I know it's late. Did I admit this?
I would ask that you admit it into evidence.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. Exhibits 1 through 5 are admitted into
think
the
you did.
record. Mr. President, I don't know if you need to go off the, excuse me, off the record to do this one. It's certainly the prerogative of the board, or you can stay on.
Can I ask a question?
You certainly can.
What was your recommendations again?
She was short 12 hours, so it would be a $1,200 penalty. She would have to make up 24 live hours that did not count towards her renewal. Investigative costs at 80 hours, and we normally figure those at $100 an hour. Revocation, and if she meets all those requirements, then she can apply for reinstatement. We have done a revocation, and then they can, if they meet all the requirements of the order, then they can apply for reinstatement. It is not. We would have to revoke, and then if she meets the rest of the requirements, then she could apply for reinstatement.
This is CE for
Yes, sir.
almost.
And this will be our last case. We had several that they resolved the last couple of days.
Does this pharmacist, are they an Arkansas resident practicing in the state?
They are not.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Vales?
No.
Mr. President, do you need to go off the record? You want to stay on the record? Well, that's the prerogative of the board. Yes, sir.
On the order and notice of hearing, I'm sorry.
Exhibit 2.
There it is. I'd like to make a motion in the matter of Melissa Gada, PD 13441, case number 2024 CE-011. The board finds allegations 1 through 4 to have been be true, and charges 1 and 2 proven. Make a motion that we implement a $1,200 fine that represents $100 per hour of every hour of live CE that Dr. Gada was short. That we implement a investigative cost non-disciplinary fee of $8,000, 80 hours of investigative work at $100 an hour. The Dr. Gada make up twice the number of hours that she was short, above and beyond the 30-hour requirement. So a total of 24 live hours. Considering the time frame and the lack of response, I would also motion that we revoke her pharmacist permit. And once she meets all of the requirements, she can reapply.
If it got to this point, is it really non-disciplinary? Because
Well, it's investigative costs. I don't,
Well, the $1,200 is not.
oh, the $1,200 part is the,
Revoke is definitely.
yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I don't disagree. I just was trying to get clarification on which one it was. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second, and a further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, unanimously.
I'll ask staff to reduce that decision in writing. Make your best efforts to serve the respondent with it. No further questions or comments. I'll call this hearing to a close. We are winding up here. All right, next item, and actually last item on the agenda, still before the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy in the matter of Delana DePriest, applicant, case number is 2025-009. Ms. Rails, would you be so kind as to identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm Ashley Bales, General Counsel for the Arkansas State Board of Pharmacy.
All right, let me take judicial notice of both the statutes as well as the rules, specifically Arkansas Code annotated 1792-101, that sequence, as well as the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act. We've got what, 12 exhibits, is that right, Ms. Rails?
Yes, I move to admit those.
All right, motion is granted. Those exhibits are now part of the record. Want to turn it over to you, Ms. Rails, and you can lay some groundwork on this one too.
Board members, I'm going to rest on the record that's contained in the exhibits, and just say that we denied her application for some offenses that are deniable under the statute. Their convictions, and arrest for battery in the second degree and battery in the third degree. She's received probation and paid fines. These convictions remain on her record. She has more than one battery charge and 2 DWIs. And she has not appeared here today after receiving notice as evidenced by Exhibit 2, showing that she signed for the green card and received her order notice of hearing. So we would ask that you uphold our administrative denial of her pharmacy tech application and deny a waiver of the criminal history.
I think that might be it, Mr. President.
Based on the record, the absence of someone to defend those claims, okay, we were ready to make a motion.
In the matter of Delana DePriest, case 2025-009, A1 through 9 is true, and charge 1 is proven. And I would make a motion that we uphold the staff's decision to deny her application or a waiver or both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes are unanimous.
And we have no other, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to ask staff to reduce that decision in writing, try and get a copy of it. It's your best efforts to the respondent, along with an information sheet that notifies her of her appeal rights. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll call this hearing to a close.
And we have no other hearings that will require a court reporter and a hearing officer, so I would ask that they be excused. We do have an emergency hearing that was scheduled earlier in the day that we're going to take up now. And one other issue with a consent agreement that we need to discuss. And Dr. Kirtley might have something else, but a few other items left. But I would ask the court reporter and the hearing officer be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
I'm just gonna go ahead. You want to do McMurray?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have one case, that we need to take up for emergency hearing. It's on Benjamin McMurray, PD license 13193, board case number 2020-015. I'm gonna ask Dr. Kirtley to explain the history with Mr. McMurray and why we requested a voluntary surrender of his license. He has received that voluntary surrender and signed for it by certified mail and has not returned a copy to us. So we feel that this creates an emergency situation that warrants this hearing today due to the health and safety of the public.
Just real quickly on this, we postponed from yesterday, believing we might get a signed copy of that surrender. For any of you that do or do not remember, he's been on contract with us, with our support group. The board had allowed him to go back to practice. He subsequently, we did get a report of a failed drug test that sent him back for overview and everything that that entails. Part of a failed drug test like that, I think this one was, technically alcohol, but still is a violation of contract, which has an agreement to immediately surrender your license. We waited until he was back, in the community to ask for that. It was roughly a month ago that we sent that. We have confirmed receipt, but have been unable to get a signed copy back. So with that, the staff is asking for an emergency suspension of his license to ensure that there's no attempt to utilize it to go back to work.
We have enough information to make the motion?
Yeah, it's case number 2020-015. And his pharmacy license is 13193. I can repeat that if I need to.
Yep.
Benjamin McMurray.
I'd like to make a motion. All right, case in the matter of Dr. Benjamin McMurray, case number 2020-015, PD 13193. I'd make a motion for an emergency suspension of his license.
Second is, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Talk about Stoner.
Hey, so we had another, we had a informal conference agreement offer that included a requirement, you have the copies, I believe, a requirement for a corrective action plan. We had a signed agreement back and the corrective action plan appeared to be very brief versus what I think staff might have thought we would get initially upon that discussion. We're going to hand you guys copies. We wanted to be sure that you saw the corrective action plan before we asked you whether or not to.
I just want to
accept it.
read off what this is David Stover, case number 2025-004. At our last informal, the committee recommended that he prepare a written corrective action plan and update standard operating procedures, both of which are to be submitted within 30 days of signing this agreement. You ordered him to enroll and participate in a compounding course that was pre-approved by board staff and have that completed by December 31st. He was to pay $2,500 in non-disciplinary costs to the State Board of Pharmacy no later than December 31st, 2025. And he's agreed to participate in follow-up inspections after all the above conditions were met. Dr. Stover signed this agreement on May 6th, and he attached a document that Dr. Kirtley is referring to, and basically outlines what his plan to do in the future. And we had concerns that this was not really a meeting of the minds regarding what you all want. And so when Dr. McCready presented all the consent agreements for approval, this one was pulled out based on our concern about the document you have in front of you. So you have not yet voted to accept the consent agreement. So I guess if you want to do that, we need to do that now.
Yeah. We're asking, is that sufficient to answer for the corrective action plan that you guys requested? But we wanted, since we have that, we wanted you to see if that did or did not meet that for the board members that had suggested this plan of action. And if it does meet your criteria, then I would say make a motion to accept the order as signed. If it does not, then I imagine you would instruct us to do something else or give feedback to do more or something.
Sounds like he's not compounding anymore.
Yeah, that's what I read too.
Well, except for, there's a line in there, commercial products. So reconstitutables, I mean, there are commercial products that do require either mixing or adding ingredients to dispense.
Did the order say if you quit compounding, you don't have to do this? Or did it?
No,
say-
yeah, it did not. We have done that in the past, but in this case, you did not say if you want to continue to compound, you need to take this step. It was a specific order to take a compounding course and those other things that I read off. So that's why we were concerned, if this constitutes even an agreement.
Well, I mean, a plan of correction would be for how he's going to correct approaching the deficiencies that were identified. Were he to, I mean, were they to apply to drugs he's dispensing? I mean, you can't have an additional plan of correction to change something he's not gonna do.
I would expect a corrective action plan to be, here's what the issue was, here's how I'm correcting it. On multiple issues with more detail than this.
Because was it all compounding or was it other stuff too?
It was all
Just compound.
compounding and maybe some housekeeping
You should clean that
issues,
up whether you compound or
dirty.
not.
I think our concern was you all told him to do the course and instead he's like, I just won't compound anymore.
I don't know, because he doesn't say he's not going to do the course in that. I think if he had put in writing, and I'm not going to do the course, that's a different issue. I think he's probably would like to not do the course, but
Yeah, or if you want him to do the course if he's not going to compound anymore, I guess.
Okay, then the communication. But he doesn't take away with that.
my advice initially was if anyone asked me, whether it's this person or anyone else said, hey, the board asked me to do this, and you say, well, I'm just not going to compound anymore. I said, well, there's, two things. One, you're still compounding when you're taking other commercial products off the shelf. Like you still have to know what type of water to use, how to mix it, how it's going to have to be stored, how to instruct the patient for that. And I mean, we're not talking about just necessarily antibiotics. There's some other topical things that you have to add the steroids with alcohol and mix it or anything else along those lines, some of the dermatologic issues. And my other advice was the board didn't tell staff, hey, if you decide not to compound, you don't have to do anything, because part of this is this in lieu of punishment, education in lieu of punishment for the course itself. I said, and additionally, you may go to a course like this and you may figure out, you know what, I might not have been doing this the way I was supposed to, but there's some real opportunities to potentially help some patients doing something else in a rural area. So I don't know.
And Dr. Curley, didn't he reached out to you, correct? Yeah.
We discussed. We had a good conversation. So if this is sufficient as a response for you guys, then I would adopt the acceptance of the order. But I figured there might be a difference of opinions on whether or not that's sufficient.
I like he's using this to skirt what he was ordered to do.
But I think it can.
I think that our purpose, almost all the work correcting previous appropriate compounding. Pretty apparent lack of compounding guidelines. Continue compounding, it
Then this is sufficient.
seems to me that it's sufficient.
And I'd say that a motion.
I'll please, like that.
We
Second.
have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
I'm taking that to accept the report and to go forth with the. Okay. Last thing I had, I don't know if these ladies have anything else for me. But Dr. McCready and I have both gotten questions as of recent for, and it's namely around compounding, but it could also happen with commercial products. The board has had longstanding policy that we say if you are compounding drugs, the patient needs to pay for compounded drugs. We've made a different carve out for veterinary because there's not the same stuff about compounding or resale or anything else. But we've had a couple of companies specifically say part of our plan is that we are making a specific compound for a specific group of patients. We'll send it to the patient, but the prescriber's office wants to do basically a joint or all-encompassing payment to pay for all the services, including the drug therapy, where they would pay the pharmacy. And in the past, the board has discussed this and gone, this isn't a good idea. But if you look at the world as it sits right now, Hims, Hers, Roe, all of these lifestyle companies that were using compounded GLP-1s, that is the model they were doing. That is also the model that drug manufacturers have entered into, where you pay an all-encompassing or have a specific relationship for a telehealth visit that includes the cost of the drug. It's one joint payment. So with that, I don't know that anybody's asking us to bring those companies in and punish the pharmacies associated with them for having accepted payment from the website or the web tool or anything else. So I'm not sure why we would continue to have a problem with the prescriber as part of a, all-encompassing payment doing the same thing with pharmacies. Weird.
What do you need from us?
I just want clarification, I guess, of is it okay for that to happen? Or do you want us to try to send some kind of cease and desist to these other companies that they cannot gather payment for both the drug and the medical treatment?
What's your recommendation?
Our recommendation is let it happen.
Would it be affecting, patients? On these local.
Well, I think that I struggle with that because the patient is choosing to use a service that encompasses both. Like if you go to Hims or Hers, like, and I'm not saying that someone's going to say I'm speaking wrong with their company, but if you go to a telemedicine clinic, you are either one choosing to engage in one that will write you a prescription to take somewhere, or that you're choosing one that you get a prescription and their associated entity fills it and you pay one payment for everything. But I personally, and it's shipped directly to the patient. That's our caveat that we've said. It still has to go to the patient. You can't use a pickup station. You can't depot it or anything else. But it's not fair for us to tell local entities they can't do it when there are nationwide models that are currently doing it.
What's the difference in what you're describing between a doctor's office having a room in it where a pharmacy that he has a contract with dispenses the drugs and the doctor bills for the drugs and the doctor's service?
Nothing.
And we don't allow that, do we?
Well, we have, if there is a physical pharmacy in a clinic, it would be a permitted pharmacy that we have certain separations from the clinic. What we're saying is on the financial side, if they want to have a joint payment arrangement, they could do that.
And so we're saying a physician could do that and have a joint payment
Yes,
deal.
because that's
includes
what's
drugs.
happening with telehealth.
Sure.
And we also have, there are some drugs that physicians can dispense directly with no extra registration or permit. And then there are a lot of physicians that have been granted dispensing permits in especially realms like oncology, where they are the dispenser and therefore able to sell directly. we're seeing a lot more of, even with veterinary issues, that the overhead and amount of work that has to go into for veterinarians to actually maintain basically a pharmacy as the dispenser, but a quasi pharmacy and staff and everything else. A lot of them have relationships where they do steer your medication needs to, online pharmacy partners that have access to veterinary drugs as well. We're not crazy about it. I'm not. I don't think Dr. McCready is, but it's, it's become a really big thing in the last few years. We've got at least one specific request that is at least asking permission to set up this type of business relationship. And then at conferences and stuff, I have other people saying, why can't we do it if you're not going to do anything against this internet group? And we go, that's kind of a problem.
So this is like a major change. Like if I remember from, at least when I was in school, it was like a massive, like you can't even have a prescription with, you can't give them anything.
So you still can't do that. That's the crazy thing. We say you can't use promotional materials of a prescription with your pharmacy name on it for your compounding to give to prescribers to automatically steer patients. But if they're telling you up front that, hey, we're doing weight loss is the big one right now, but we also see this with hormone replacement a lot, because if you're going to a practitioner that they want to use like testosterone pellets, there's only a few places in the nation that make those. And if they said, here's a prescription, go find somebody, you're going to have to go way down a road to find someone who even has the ability to safely make that product. So we're already seeing it a lot with, clinical needs like that. But in the weight loss realm, there are a lot of people that say, I'll do weight loss, but I want either this specific commercial product or this specific compounded product when they were able to compound them because they had a relationship or felt like that was a better quality product than if you just went down the street and started shopping it to find it.
So now you're saying that they can have a relationship where there is one payment that is split between the two, and the clinic and the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that on that stuff would rather have a relationship with a 503B than a 503A because they know the 503B has FDA oversight and inspection and reporting, or is making it CGMP versus 795 or 797. Well, it could be because, 1801, which became, I want to say 637, but I'm probably giving the wrong number on it, would allow 503Bs to sell to 503As. But this is more about patients looking for one source and one payment to take care of whatever they want. So they know that if I'm going to engage in this practice, it's going to cost me this much money and it's going to include whatever medications I need as well as my medical visit. Enforce it. Yep. Like it's a happening all over the place right now. We made this change for veterinary 10 years ago, but veterinary was just always kind of different. It sounds crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it is already happening on a national level, then it doesn't do anything but cause problems if we try to block it at the state level.
Fine with me. I know what the other side of that coin is going to look like. It's going to be a lot of meetings going past 5:45. All right. Anything else you guys have? Brenda's looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, guys.